Shalom, family. It's your brother Jaded. Yasrael. I petition for repentance, blessings, and salvation to the tribes of Yahudah and Benjamin, who are held as slaves and prisoners in Babylon the Great, the United States of America, and to the 10 tribes scattered in all nations of the earth. May peace, love, and the earth be yours. Praise and worship to Yahuwah. Blessings and honor and worship to King Yeshua forever and ever. Amen. Alright, what's up, family? I want to discuss a little thing called the 400-year prophecy today. I see a lot of people talking about it. I don't know if everybody understands it so well, or maybe some of us understand it a little bit better than others. Maybe some of us don't believe it, so I want to talk about that today. We're going to go into scripture, and we're going to see just what the 400-year prophecy is. We're going to see when did it start, when is it supposed to end, and we're going to check a couple of scriptures out that's going to show us, some people like to try to say that, it already took place. So we're going to look at some scriptures to see if it already took place as well, or if it's still yet to happen, or if it's happening now. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So let's get started on that. All right. So what I want to start off with is the prophecy, a prophecy that was given to Abraham thousands of years ago, and this was well before our time. This is well before the time of the Messiah Yahshua coming to earth. Abraham was given this prophecy that told him something was going to happen to his descendants later on in life. So let's check that out. It's going to be found in the book of Genesis, and it's Genesis chapter 15. So let's go to Genesis chapter 15 real quick, and I'm going to turn there in my Bible. Now we're just going to give a little background on this chapter. Abraham has been promised that he's going to have a seed that's gonna take his place, and is gonna end up inheriting the land of Canaan, and is actually gonna end up inheriting the whole earth eventually. So this is a great promise given by the Most High to Abraham, and he has yet to have this seed yet. So Abraham is a little concerned. He's praying about it. He's petitioning the Most High. And the Most High begins to give him, a response and to give him a vision. And during this time, he also gets a vision of what's going to happen to his seed. The Most High assures him, you will have that seed, and let me actually show you what's going to happen to him, later on down the line. So that's a little background on Genesis chapter 15. So we're going to start in verse 12, and we're going to read actually through verse 16, okay? So now remember, this is a prophecy that's given to Abraham about what's going to happen to his seed later on, and this is the beginning of our 400-year prophecy, or what some people are calling 2019, the year of return. All right, so verse 12. Now when the sun was going down, a deep sleep fell upon Abram, and behold, horror and great darkness fell upon him. Then he said to Abram, he being the Most High, know certainly that your descendants will be strangers in a land that is not theirs, and will serve them, and they will afflict them 400 years. And also the nation whom they serve I will judge. Afterward they shall come out with great possessions. Now as for you, you shall go to your fathers in peace. You shall be buried at a good old age. But in the fourth generation they shall return here, for the iniquity of the Amorites is not yet complete. Okay? So I want you to pay particular attention to verse 16, because like I said, a lot of people like to try to say that this already happened. Verse 16 really shows us that this prophecy hasn't been fulfilled yet because this was a dual prophecy. See, verse 12 through 16 shows us that, first of all, we're talking about what's going to happen in the fourth generation. That's what we find in verse 16, where he says, in the fourth generation, they shall return here. Where is here? Here is the land of Canaan, where Abraham is setting up this altar and doing this sacrifice to the Most High and petitioning him about his seed. So Abraham is in the land of Canaan, and the Most High is telling him, in the fourth generation, your descendants are going to return here, and they're going to worship me, okay? So that's the short-term fulfillment. How long is a generation? Let's find out how long a generation is real quick. Let's do that. Okay, turning your Bibles, we're going to go to the book of Numbers real quick. We're going to find out just how long is a generation. So we know, because he's been promised that they're going to return there in the fourth generation. So how long is a generation? Let's go to the book of Numbers. And we're going to go to the book of Numbers, chapter 1. All right, let's turn now. Numbers chapter 1. All right, so we're going to read Numbers chapter 1, and then we're going to read Numbers chapter 14. Now, we're going to try to find out how long is a generation. So this book is dealing with the genealogy of Yasrael, or the tribes of Yasrael, the sons of Yasrael. Okay, so it's dealing with their genealogy. So the word genealogy, this is where we get the word generation, you see. So this is how we're going to find out how long a generation is. So let's read Numbers 1. It says, Now Yahuwah spoke to Moses in the wilderness of Sinai, in the tabernacle of meeting, on the first day of the second month, in the second year after they had come out of the land of Mizraim, that is Egypt, saying, Take a census of all the congregation of the children of Yasrael, by their families, by their fathers' houses, according to the number of names, every male individually, from 20 years old and above, all who are able to go to war in Yasrael. You and Aaron shall number them by their armies. And with you there shall be a man from every tribe, each of the head of his father's house. These are the names of the men who shall stand with you. From Reuben, Eliezer the son of Shedir. From Simeon, Shelemiel the son of Zershadai. From Yahudah, Nashon the son of Amminadab. From Issachar, Nethanel the son of Zuar. From Zebulun, Eliab the son of Helon. From the sons of Yosef, from Ephraim, Elishama the son of Ammihud. From Manasseh, Gamaliel the son of Pedahezar. From Benjamin, Abidan the son of Gideoni. From Dan, Ahiezer the son of Ammishaddai. From Asher, Pagiel the son of Akron. From Gad, Eliasaph the son of Duel. From Naphtali, Ahira the son of Enan. These were chosen from the congregation, leaders of their fathers, tribes, heads of the divisions in Yasrael. Then Moses and Aaron took these men who had been mentioned by name, and they assembled all the congregation together on the first day of the second month. And they recited their ancestry by families, by their fathers' houses, according to the number of names from 20 years old and above, each one individually. As Yahuwah commanded Moses, so he numbered them in the wilderness of Sinai. Now the children of Reuben, Yasrael's oldest son, their genealogies by their families, remember genealogy is generation, by their father's house, according to the number of names, every male individually, from 20 years old and above, all who were able to go to war. So pay attention to that. He says the people who were numbered were from 20 years old and above. No one under the age of 20 got numbered in the census. So it was from 20 years old and above who got numbered. Okay, so now let's go to Numbers chapter 14 real quick, and let's finish trying to see exactly how long is a generation. We see that a generation starts at 20 years. Okay, 20 years. Okay, so let's turn to Numbers chapter 14. And we're going to see how long a generation is once again. So remember, from 20 years old and above, this is how the children of Yasrael are numbered. So we're going to read Numbers 14, 26 through 33 and get some further clarification on just how long is a generation, okay? All right, it says, 26. And Yahuwah spoke to Moses and Aaron, saying, how long shall I bear with this evil congregation who complain against me? I have heard the complaints when the children of Yasrael make against me. So once again, we just want to give a little background before I really read the whole thing. This is, when the nation of Yasrael was told to enter, into the land of Canaan and take possession of it. Okay, so let's turn to Numbers chapter 14, and we're going to get a little bit further clarification on just how long a generation is, all right? So Numbers chapter 14, and just remember, like we just read in chapter 1 of Numbers, 20 years old and above, okay? 20 years old and above is how they are numbered, how the nation of Yasrael is numbered. So just to give a little background on chapter 14 of Numbers, all right? So we're going to read starting in verse 1. So all the congregation lifted up their voices and cried, and the people wept that night. And all the children of Yasrael complained against Moses and Aaron, and the whole congregation said to them, if only we had died in the land of Mizraim, that is Egypt, or if only we had died in this wilderness. Why has Yahuwah brought us to this land to fall by the sword, that our wives and children should become victims? Would it not be better for us to return to Mizraim? So they said to one another, let us select a leader and return to Mizraim. All right, so I'll stop there. That's verse 4. I'll stop there. So basically, the people of the children of Yasrael, they're complaining because they've just been told that it's time to enter into the land and take possession of this beautiful land that the Most High Yahuwah has given to them and promised to Abraham and Isaac and Jacob. Okay, but they're scared because Caleb and Joshua, and the spies, spies from all of the different tribes, they just went there, and spied out the land. And Caleb and Joshua is the only one that came back with a good report, So the rest of the people, they said, hey, it's giants in the land. It's a beautiful land, but we're small people, and we can't fight against them. It's too many of them. They're too big. They're giants, So they brought some of the fruit back. The fruit was giant fruit. So they're scared, and this is why the children of Yasrael are complaining. So this is, by them complaining, it actually helps us to see how long a generation is. So we're going to skip forward in verse 14, and we're going to read verse 26 through 33, because they were actually judged for acting this way. So let's see what their judgment was from the Most High. He says, and Yahuwah, verse 26, and Yahuwah spoke to Moses and Aaron, saying, how long shall I bear with this evil congregation who complain against me? I have heard the complaints which the children of Yasrael make against me. Say to them, as I live, says Yahuwah, just as you have spoken in my hearing, so I will do to you. The carcasses of you who have complained against me shall fall in this wilderness. All of you who were numbered according to your entire number, from 20 years old and above. There's that number again, from 20 years old and above, verse 30. Except for Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, and Yeshua, the son of Nun. You shall by no means, that is Joshua, the son of Nun, you shall by no means enter the land which I swore I would make you dwell in. But your little ones, whom you said would be victims, I will bring in, and they shall know the land which you have despised. But as for you, your carcasses shall fall in this wilderness, and your sons shall be shepherds in the wilderness 40 years, and bear the brunt of your infidelity until your carcasses are consumed in the wilderness. Okay? So, once again, so this entire generation, once again, he said from 20 years old and above. Now, we already established, earlier that 20 years old and above is our starting point. That's our starting point for numbering the children of Yasrael. Anybody under the age of 20, you don't even get counted in the census. Okay, so from 20 years old and above, and then we can see once again over here in verse 29, the Most High uses this number again. He says, the carcasses of you who have complained against me shall fall in the wilderness. All of you who were numbered according to your entire number from 20 years old and above. Okay? So we see that 20 years old and above was the starting point for the census, and it was the starting point for the judgment of Yahuwah as well. How long was this judgment to take place? Okay? He said, remember, we were reading the genealogies earlier in chapter 1. So genealogy means generation. So he said this whole generation is going to die in the wilderness. How long was this judgment for? He says, your little ones whom you said would be victims I will bring in, and they shall know the land which you have despised. Verse 32. But as for you, your carcasses shall fall in this wilderness, and your sons shall be shepherds in the wilderness 40 years, and bear the brunt of your infidelity, until your carcasses are consumed in the wilderness. According to the number of the days in which you spied out the land, 40 days. For each day you shall bear your guilt 1 year, namely 40 years, and you shall know my rejection. Okay? So we can see here that a generation is 40 years, starting at age 20, from age 20 to age 60. Okay? That counts as one generation. All right? Every 40 years it's a new generation. That's how the Most High sees it. Okay? That's one generation. So, so that's the way the Most High looks at it. So we can see from Numbers chapter 1 and Numbers chapter 14 that a generation is 40 years, starting at age 20 and ending at age 60. And this was the age that most of these people died at. It was age 60, around age 60. Most people were either getting ready to die or getting close to dying, or, some type, that was the average life expectancy around that time. Okay? So like I said, that would have been, from age 20, starting at age 20, and ending at age 60. Didn't mean you was going to die at age 60. It just meant that the Most High counted that as one generation, okay? A generation is 40 years, all right? We can see that from the book of Numbers, all right? So now that we know how long a generation is, all right, let's go back to this prophecy of Abraham that Abraham had. Let's go back to that prophecy in Genesis chapter 15. All right, so I'll turn our Bibles there, and we're in Genesis chapter 15 once again. And once again in verse 16 it says, but in the 4th generation they shall return here being the land of Canaan once again. But in the 4th generation they shall return here, for the iniquity of the Amorites is not yet complete. And for, I don't want to insult anyone's intelligence, but, for those of us that don't know, the land of Canaan is current day Israel, or what we like to call the Middle East. That was the land of Canaan, or mostly the land of Canaan, what they call Israel today, okay? So they was to return to the land of Israel, or to the land of Canaan that it was called at that time, in the 4th generation, all right? Once again, we see that this is a dual prophecy. So we see in the 4th generation, so the 4th generation was going to be their captivity in the land of Mizraim, that is Egypt, okay? So that's when they was going to return in the 4th generation. They was going to go into the land of Egypt, or Mizraim. They was going to go there because there was going to be a great famine. Okay, the Most High was going to set this up to where there was going to be a great famine in the land, actually in all the earth, it said. Okay, and the entire inhabited earth at the time, everybody had to go to Egypt. Egypt was the only people who had food. Okay, so this is how the children of Yasrael ended up going into Egypt in the first place. Okay, so they got there, they got food, and they ended up getting a lot of favor from Pharaoh because their brother Joseph was basically, you might as well call him vice president of Egypt at the time. He was next to Pharaoh. He was second in command to Pharaoh himself. Okay, so he was basically Pharaoh of Egypt. So they treated him like he was Pharaoh. So like I said, Joseph, he would have been basically next to Pharaoh himself, but he really was more like Pharaoh himself because Pharaoh would have been a very young boy, either a teenager or a young boy. This is how the Egyptians started ruling, and we can see that in Genesis 45 and verse 8. If we turn to Genesis 45 and verse 8. Now this is Joseph speaking to his brothers, and he says, "But now it was you who sent me here, but Elohim has made me a father to Pharaoh, and Adonai of all his house, and a ruler throughout all the land of Mizraim," that is Egypt. Okay, so here is Josephus, Joseph himself, saying that the Most High made it to where even though his brothers sold him into slavery, he ended up being over a ruler over all Egypt, and he said, "I'm a father to Pharaoh." So this shows that the Egyptians started ruling at a very young age. Okay, so here it is. This famine is in all the earth. Joseph gets sent here as a slave. The Most High works it out to where he's actually a father to Pharaoh, and he's over the whole land of Egypt, and he's over the food supply. And his brothers got to come back, same ones that sold him into slavery. They have to come back to Egypt, to the land of Egypt, and get food from their brother who they sold into slavery. And they don't recognize him. And that's just another, ode to the fact that, that the Egyptians and the Yasraelites looked very similar in ancient times. But his own brothers didn't recognize him. They thought he was an Egyptian. That's just a side point, though. So this is how the Yasraelites ended up in the land of Mizraim, or the land of Egypt in the first place. Okay, and the Most High set it up because of this famine, and they had to go there for food. They ended up staying because their brother was Pharaoh over all Egypt, pretty much, or second in command over all Egypt. And they stayed there. Now let's see how long they stayed there. So this is how they ended up going to the land of Egypt. So this would be the beginning point of the first part of Abraham's prophecy. See, Abraham had a prophecy given to him, and this prophecy was a two-part prophecy. It was one that was going to happen, a little, closer to his time or his day and time. And then there was one that was going to happen far off into the future, okay? So we know for a fact that Abraham went into Egypt, okay? He also had a famine in his day of time. This is not the famine that we're talking about with Joseph, or Josephus and his 11 brothers. But there was also a famine in the time of Abram. Abram was dead by the time that Joseph became Pharaoh of Egypt. Okay, but there was also a famine in the time of Abraham. So we can find it in Genesis chapter 12. Let's go chapter 12 of Genesis real quick. Turn your Bibles there, and we'll start reading in verse 10. It says, "Now there was a famine in the land, and Abram went down to Mizraim," that is Egypt, "to dwell there, for the famine was severe in the land." Okay, so here it is. We see in verse 10, chapter 12, verse 10 of Genesis, that Abram himself went to the land of Egypt, that is Mizraim, to the land of Mizraim, that is Egypt. Okay, Abram himself, our forefather Abram, went to the land of Mizraim. All right, so he knew that land, and that's very important. You know, that's a very important scripture to show us that Abram was familiar with the land of Egypt. Okay, so we see very clearly that Abram was in the land of Egypt because of a famine that happened in his day and time. Okay, so he was in the land. All right, he was familiar with the land of Egypt. You know, if you want to read a little further, we won't read it right now, but if you read a little further, they even thought that his wife Sarai was very beautiful, and you know, they was gonna, you know, take her until you know, the Most High, you know, they was gonna take her until the Most High, you know, gave a dream to the Pharaoh and told him, hey, this woman is married, you know, because Abram was saying that, hey, these are pagan worshipers. They don't fear the Most High. They're gonna try to take my wife and kill me. So just tell them that you're my sister when we go there. And that's what they did, and they was actually going to take his wife and marry her. The Pharaoh was going to marry her, but you know, the Most High gave him a dream and said, "You better not touch that woman because, you know, she belongs to a holy man." All right, so Pharaoh let him go. So that's the first part of this prophecy. So we see earlier, we discussed it. We know that they did go into Egypt later on after Abraham died because there was another famine in the time of Jacob and his sons living. Okay, there was another famine in the land, and they had to go back to Egypt again to get food once again because they had the Nile River there. The Nile River made sure that was a very fertile land, and because of this, they was able, the Egyptians or the Mizraimites, they was able to grow some pretty good crops. So usually when there was a famine, you know, they was able to have a little food extra, you know. But this second famine is so great that it even happened in the land of Egypt. So because Joseph was there, he was able to tell Pharaoh, hey, let's save some of this food. The Most High gave him a dream, and he said, you know, let's save some of this food because we're going to have 7 years of famine, and, you know, we're going to have 7 years of plenty. So during the 7 years of plenty, let's save some food for the 7 years of famine, okay? So this is why you know, they came there. All right, this is why the children of Yasrael, Jacob and his sons came into Egypt. Okay, so this is when this happened. This is when the first part of this prophecy starts taking place, y'all. When they enter into the land. Let's see how long they was there. Okay, we're gonna see how long they was there because we can see in, you know, going back to verse 16. Of 15, it says, in the 4th generation they shall return here, for the iniquity, that is the sin of the Amorites, is not yet complete. All right, in the 4th generation. So the Amorites are ancient people. They some of the people that the Yasraelites had to defeat going into the promised land. But here the Most High says their iniquity is not complete. So in 4 generations, their iniquity will be complete. So 4 generations, we already established how long a generation is. That's 40 years, from age 20 to 60. Okay? So 4 generations, 4 times 40. That's, I ain't too good at math. Let's see, we got 40, 80, 120, 60. All right, 160. All right, so that's 160 years. All right, that's 4 generations. So let's see if the Yasraelites were in the land of Egypt, that is Mizraim, for 4 generations, just like the Most High said in this first part of this prophecy. Okay, let's see if they was there for that long. Okay, now Levi was one of the sons of Jacob, so he would have been one of the ones that was entering into Egypt, okay, at the time when there was a famine. He would have been with his father, Jacob, Jacob, or Yasrael, Israel. He would have been with Yasrael, or and he would have been with his brothers entering into the land to get some food because there was a famine in the land. Okay. All right. So let's read 1 Chronicles chapter 6. Okay, and we're gonna only read verse 1 through 3. So this is talking about the sons of Levi. Levi, once again, is one of the sons of Jacob that entered into Egypt because of the famine. Okay, so starting with Levi, we'll see how long was the people in the land. Okay, all right. So chapter 6 of 1 Chronicle reads, the sons of Levi were Gershon, Kohath, and Merari. The sons of Kohath were Amram, Izhar, Hebron, and Uzziel. The children of Amram were Aaron, Moses, and Miriam. And the sons of Aaron were Nadab, Abihu, Eleazar, and Ithamar. Anybody that knows the Bible real well will know that Eleazar was one of the first few high priests. Okay, it was one of the first few priests of the Most High's tabernacle once the children left the land of Egypt. Okay, so here we can see that Aaron, who was in captivity in the land of Egypt, his son ended up being a priest. All right, so they couldn't have been there that long. They just couldn't have. All right, so let's see how long they was there. Let's check out this genealogy. We know that 40 years equals a generation, and the Most High said that they're gonna be in this land for 4 generations. All right. Okay, so let's see exactly when this other generation comes in. At all right, and it's dealing with our big homie Moses. All right, that's who it's dealing with today. Okay, so First Chronicles chapter 6, verse 1, we can see it says the sons of Levi were Gershon, Kohath, and Merari. The sons of Kohath were Amram, Izhar, Hebron, and Uzziel. The children of Amram were Aaron, Moses, and Miriam. And the sons of Aaron were Nadab, Abihu, Eleazar, and Ithamar. Okay? All right, so here we can see from Levi to his son Kohath, that's 1 generation. All right? From Kohath to his son Amram, that's 2 generations, y'all. Okay? And Amram's children were Aaron, Moses, and Miriam. So we got 2 generations, all right? From Levi to Kohath, and from Kohath to Amram. That's 2 generations, all right? Now we got Aaron, Moses, and Miriam born, all right? Now something happens. Remember, a generation is 40 years. So something happened when Moses was born. You know, they was trying to kill all the Egyptian children. They were scared of these Yasrael children that was being born. They were scared they was going to help their enemies one day. The Pharaoh was very afraid of them. So he had the firstborn. He had all of the male children killed when they was born. All right, Moses was one of those male children. His mama wanted to save him, so she put him in a little basket and sent him up the river and just prayed the Most High just took the wheel. All right. And that's exactly what happened. The Most High did take the wheel, and Pharaoh's daughter found the baby and raised it. Okay, now he was raised. It says in Acts chapter 7. It says, let's go to verse 22. It says, Moses was educated in all the wisdom of the Egyptians and was powerful in speech and action. All right? So he was educated in all the wisdom of the Egyptians. We know some of our brothers and sisters like that now, educated in all the wisdom of the Americans, all the wisdom of this world, okay? Moses had it all, right? He was rich, he was powerful. He was the grandson to Pharaoh of Egypt, the most powerful nation in the world at the time, one of the most advanced nations in the world at the time. Okay, so he had it all, y'all. All right, but something happened. All right, Moses ended up finding out who he was. All right, he knew that he wasn't an Egyptian. He might have looked like an Egyptian to Pharaoh. He might have fooled Pharaoh. But he knew in his heart, he knew who he was. All right. So how did Moses know that he wasn't Egyptian? Because once again, like we spoke about earlier, even with Joseph, his brothers didn't recognize him when he was Pharaoh of Egypt. Okay, so the Egyptians looked very, very similar to the Yasraelites. All right. So how did Moses grow up knowing that he wasn't an Egyptian? All right, so let's find out. Let's go to the book of Exodus. Like I said, we're gonna speak strictly scripture today. Let's go to the book of Exodus, and we're gonna read in chapter 2. Okay. All right, and chapter 2 of Exodus. Remember, once again, Moses got sent up the Nile River in a little basket by his mama. So he wouldn't be killed by Pharaoh. Once again, this happened earlier, in the book of Exodus. Sent up the Nile River, discovered by Pharaoh's daughter. Now, once Pharaoh's daughter discovers, this child in the basket, Moses, she takes him out, and his sister was going along and watching the whole time to see what was going to happen to him. They didn't just put him in the river and walk off. His sister, loved him a lot, so she walked along. We know his sister was Miriam, so she walked along to see what was going to happen to this boy and to her little brother. All right, so when she seen this lady take him out, she came up to the lady. So we're going to start reading. In verse 7, it says, "Then his sister asked Pharaoh's daughter, 'Shall I go and get one of the Hebrew women to nurse the baby for you?'" So remember, the Egyptians, they very similar to the Americans. They was too lazy to even nurse their own babies. They was too rich. They felt they was too good. Or they had better things to do. They couldn't even nurse their own babies. Okay, so his sister said, asked Pharaoh's daughter, "Shall I go and get one of the Hebrew women to nurse the baby for you?" "Yes, go," she answered. So the girl went and got the baby's mother. Now remember, she doesn't know that this is even his sister. Okay, she just thinks it's a random little Hebrew girl passing by. And what does his sister do? His sister goes and gets his mother. All right? And what does it say in verse 9? Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Take this baby and nurse him for me, and I will pay you." So the woman took the baby and nursed him. When the child grew older, she took him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. She named him Moses, saying, "I drew him out of the water." All right? So, quick thinking little girl right here. All right? She went along. She didn't say, "Hey, I'm his sister," or nothing like that, which would have probably startled the woman. Maybe she wouldn't have wanted to take the baby. She just pretended to just be passing along and said, "Hey, I can help." And she went and got the baby's mother, and the mother, Moses' mother was quick thinking as well, because she didn't say anything. So she ended up actually getting paid to take care of her own child. How many mothers would like that deal right now? She actually ended up getting paid to nurse her own child, okay? So Moses went into the household of Pharaoh knowing who he was, because his own mother nursed him to a healthy age, maybe 5, 6, 7 years old. Who knows? Might have been 10 years old. Nursed him to a healthy age, and then he went and became the son of Pharaoh's daughter. Okay, so they didn't know that this Hebrew woman had taught him all about who he was and his heritage and everything, but his mother taught him. You can rest assured that his Hebrew mother taught him who he was and what was going on with their people, how they, came into Egypt, and they was good at first, and then they became slaves when this new Pharaoh took over. They've been here about 80 years at this point. You see what I'm saying? From Levi to Kohath, and then Kohath to his son. That's 2 generations, 80 years. You see what I'm saying? So you rest assured, Moses' mother told him these things. Okay, so Moses would have grown up knowing exactly who he was. All right. So let's see when this 3rd generation took place. So we know when we read once again Chronicles 6, we know from Levi, starting in verse 1, the sons of Levi were Gershon, Kohath, and Merari. So from Levi to Kohath, that's 1 generation. The sons of Kohath were the sons of Amram were Aaron, Moses, and Miriam. So from Kohath to Amram, another generation. That's 2 generations, y'all. And then he had Aaron, Moses, and Miriam. Okay, at the beginning of that generation. So we got 2 generations that we, our ancestors have been slaves at this point. They've been descendants, in this foreign land from the time Levi went in, and to the time that Moses is born. 2 generations. When did the 3rd generation take place? Okay, so let's see what happened when Moses grows up, all right? So going back to the book of Acts again, all right? All things we're going to prove through Scripture today. Let's go back to the book of Acts again, and let's turn back to chapter 7 again, all right? And it says, starting in verse 22 of 7, again, it says, Moses was learned in all the wisdom of the Egyptians and was mighty in words and in deeds. Here's the important part, verse 23. And when he was full 40 years old, it came into his heart to visit his brethren, the children of Yasrael. All right? So notice what his age was when it came into his heart to visit his brothers, the children of Yasrael. He was 40 years old. 40 years old. How long is a generation, y'all? I know we got this by now. 40 years, right? A generation is 40 years. We already proved that earlier. We looked at the judgment of the children of Yasrael from 20 years old and above. Remember that the children of Yasrael had to wander for 40 years, and everybody who was age 20 and up. Remember that? All right. So from age 20 to 40, that's a I'm sorry, from age 20 to 60, that's a generation. All right. So Moses was 40 years old. All right. When it came into his heart to visit his brothers, the children of Yasrael. Verse 24. And seeing one of them suffer wrong, he defended him and avenged him that was oppressed and smote the Egyptian. All right? It says, for he supposed his brothers would have understood how that Elohim by his hand would deliver them, but they understood not. And the next day he showed himself to them as they strove, and would have set them at one again, saying, sirs, you are brothers. Why do you wrong one to another? But he that did his neighbor wrong thrust him away, saying, who made you a ruler and a judge over us? Will you kill me as you did the Egyptian yesterday? Then Moses fled at this saying and was a stranger in the land of Midian, where he begat 2 sons. All right? So here it says that he went into he was 40 years old when he went to go visit his people. He saw an Egyptian beaten on one of his brothers. Remember, they were slaves. And he killed the Egyptian. And he hid his body in the sand. Okay? And he went about his way. And he thought nobody seen him. But then the next day, he seen 2 of his brothers fighting. He tried to break it up and said, hey, y'all brothers. That might be familiar to some of us today. We see two of our Yasraelite brothers fighting, 2 of our black brothers fighting, and we try to break it up. And one of them, the one that was in the wrong, told Moses, who made you a ruler over us? You want to kill me like you killed the Egyptian? Basically letting Moses know, we know what you did. We know you killed that man. Okay, so at this point, let's see what Moses did. Keep reading. Acts chapter 7. Verse 29, it says, Then Moses fled at this saying, and was a stranger in the land of Midian, where he begat 2 sons. Okay? So we know that by the time Moses was born, we got 2 generations past, y'all. All right? Now here Moses is 40 years old, and he's going to visit his brothers. That's another generation, y'all. That's 3 generations. Remember, the Most High said it was 4 generations they was going to be here. By the time Moses went to go visit his brothers and sisters and see how they was doing, when he was 40 years old, that's 3 generations past. What happened? He ended up fleeing for his life because Pharaoh found out he killed another Egyptian man. Okay? He ended up fleeing for his life. All right? Now when he fled for his life, where is this 4th generation going to come in at? Let's see how long he was there. Let's read Acts chapter 7. We're going to keep reading in verse 30. And when 40 years were expired, there appeared to him in the wilderness of Mount Sinai an angel of Yahuwah in a flame of fire in a bush. When Moses saw it, he wondered at the sight. And as he drew near to behold it, the voice of Yahuwah came unto him, saying, I am Elohim of your fathers, the Elohim of Abraham, the Elohim of Isaac, the Elohim of Jacob. Then Moses trembled and did not behold him. Then said Yahuwah to him, Put off your shoes from your feet, for the place where you stand is holy ground. I have seen the affliction of my people which is in Egypt, and I have heard their groaning, and am come down to deliver them. And now come, I will send you into Egypt. Boom, there it is, y'all. That's it right there. Okay? The third generation, Moses 40 years old. All right? Went to go visit his brothers and sisters, see how they was doing. Seen they wasn't doing too well. Saw an Egyptian beating on one of his brothers. Okay? Killed the Egyptian. Hid him in the sand. Hid the body. You know, people seen him. Snitched on him. His own people snitched on him. We know how that go. His own people snitched on him, all right? Told Pharaoh or whatever. All right, now he running for his life. So that's 3 generations. All right, two generations when Moses was born, 3rd generation when he went to visit his people. And here it is, the 4th generation right there. It says when 40 years were expired, that's when Moses got up. He went into this land of Midian. He had 2 sons with these women, with this woman. And it says when 40 years went by, that's the 4th generation right there. All right? That's 40. Remember, 40 years is a generation. That's it right there. That's another generation went by. So that's the 4th one. When 40 years went by, when the 4th generation came up, Moses saw the burning bush. And what did the Most High tell him at the burning bush? He said, I have seen the affliction of my people, which is in Mizraim, which is in Egypt, that is the land of Egypt. I have heard their groaning, and I have come down to deliver them. And now come, what am I about to do? I will send you into Egypt. All right? So he's sending them into Egypt to deliver his people. All right? So here we can see where the 4 generations come in at, y'all. You know, it's kind of lengthy, but, you know, it's necessary that we see exactly how long they were in the land. All right, so once again, Chronicles chapter 6, verse 1. The sons of Levi were Gershon, Kohath, and Merari. The sons of Kohath were Amram, Izhar, Hebron, and Uzziel. The children of Amram were Aaron, Moses, and Miriam. The sons of Aaron were Nadab, Abihu, Eleazar, and Ithamar. All right, so from Levi, Levi was one of the first ones to enter into Egypt. The children of Yasrael, from Levi to Kohath, 1 generation, y'all. All right, from Kohath to Amram, 2 generations, y'all. All right, and then Amram had sons. All right, in that 2nd generation. All right, named Aaron and Moses, and a daughter named Miriam. All right. Now, this Moses grew up, you know, in the house of Pharaoh. When he was 40 years old, that's the 3rd generation. He went to go visit his people. Once again, he killed the Egyptian man. He burnt off. He started running. He went to the land. He had 2 sons. By time, his sons were maybe 20, 30 years old, who knows? He got a vision. He was in that land for 40 years. Maybe he was there for 10 years and had a son, who knows? All right? So that it says he was 40 years old when he went there. So when he came back to lead the children of Yasrael out of the land of Egypt, he was how old? He was 80 years old. He was 40 when he ran. He stayed gone 40 years, and he came back at 80 years old to lead his people. You know, this is when he got this vision at 80 years old of the burning bush, and the Most High telling them that I seen the affliction of my people. So he was 80 years old when he was chosen to lead the children of Yasrael, and most likely it had something to do with him killing that Egyptian man. Most High seen something in him and said, hey, I can use this dude. You know what I'm saying? He loved his people just like I love my people. You know, so there it is. That's 4 generations, okay? So let's go back and read this prophecy again. Now that we got a thorough understanding of how long a generation is, how long the children of Yasrael were in the land of Egypt, let's go back and get a better understanding of what's happening in the book of Genesis in chapter 15. Turn your Bibles back to chapter 15 of Genesis, and we're going to read it again. We're going to read this until we understand it, y'all. All right, it says, and starting in 12 again, it says, when the sun was going down, a deep sleep fell upon Abram, and behold, horror and great darkness fell upon him. Then he, the Most High, said to Abram, know certainly that your descendants, that is, the children of Yasrael, will be strangers in a land that is not theirs, that is Egypt. Okay? And will serve them. Okay? And let's just, we might as well, let's use some punctuation here. Let's put a period right there. And will serve them. All right? Now, since this is a two-part prophecy and the Most High usually speaks in riddles, you know, you would read this and you wouldn't understand it because it says it will serve them. And they will afflict them for 100 years. And now if you take the word and out, it reads a little different. Let's read it without that word and at the end. Then he said to Abram, know certainly that your descendants will be strangers in a land that is not theirs, and will serve them. They will afflict them 400 years, and the nation whom they serve I will judge, afterwards they shall come out with great possessions. All right? So it reads a little differently there. All right? So, you know, when you take that word and out and you put a period after where it says and will serve them, it reads, then he said to Abram, know certainly that your descendants will be strangers in a land that is not theirs, and will serve them. Period. All right? Because that's talking about the land of Egypt. The second part where it says they will afflict them 400 years, that's talking about a totally different land, y'all. Totally different land. We already seen in the book of Jeremiah that it says this land where they're going to serve for 400 years is going to be a land that neither they nor their fathers nor their ancestors knew. Okay, so this can't be the land of Egypt where Abram went, where Isaac went, where Jacob went. Joseph was the king, the Pharaoh. You see what I'm saying? Moses was the Pharaoh, or was the grandson of the Pharaoh. You see what I'm saying? This couldn't have been the land of Egypt that it's talking about. Okay, so the first part of this prophecy is taking place. Now let's read in 16. It says, but in the fourth generation they shall return here, for the iniquity of the Amorites is not yet complete. So just to make this riddle a little bit more confusing, you know, and you need the Holy Spirit to understand it, y'all. You know what I'm saying? To make it a little bit more confusing, the Most High is going back and forth between these two, this dual prophecy. He's not giving you everything and saying this is what's going to happen in the first part, this is what's going to happen in the second part. He kind of mixing it up a little bit, see? Because in verse 13, you know, it's mixed up a little bit. It says they're going to be strangers in a land that is not theirs, and they're going to serve them. That's exactly what they did in the land of Egypt. They served them. All right. Then it mixes it up and it fast forwards to the future. Then they will afflict them 400 years. All right. And the nation whom they serve I will judge, afterward they shall come out with great possessions. Then he cuts over to Abraham. Now as for you, you shall go to your fathers in peace. You shall be buried at a good old age. Now he cuts back to the first part of the prophecy again. But in the fourth generation they shall return here. All right. So how do we know it's two prophecies? We know it's talking about two totally different prophecies here because, for one, we know a generation is 40 years. 40 years is how long a generation is, okay? He said they're going to serve for 400 years. All right, I don't know how your math work out, but 4 generations is 160 years, okay? So if they're going to be coming back in the fourth generation, 120, 400, it don't equal out. So we talking about two totally different time frames. The first time, they're going to serve in a land that is not theirs. All right? They're going to be strangers, and they're going to serve in a land that's not theirs, but it's not going to be a land that their ancestors didn't know about. It's going to be the land of Egypt. Okay, and they're going to serve there for 160 years, from Levi to Moses being 2 generations, then Moses growing up to 40 years old, that's the 3rd generation. Moses staying gone for 40 years and coming back at the age of 80, that's the 4th generation, all right? 80 plus 80 is 160, 40, 40, 40, and 40, however you want to do it, all right? So we got 160 years. That's how long the children of Yasrael were in the land of Egypt before Moses was sent there to bring them out of the land of Yasrael by the Most High himself, all right? So that was the first part of the prophecy. So where does the 400 years come in at? Okay? Before I show you where it comes in at, I'm going to show you where it does not come in at. This is one of the favorite scriptures that Christians and Jewish people and just anybody who would like to deny our heritage and say that we aren't the children of the Most High, to say that we don't fit these prophecies that's in this holy book, the Bible. Any of those people, they love to use, these scriptures. So let's see exactly what's going on. Let's see exactly what time frame does not fit the spirit. Before we find out when the 400 years happened, let's find out when it did not happen, and let's find out the lie that they like to try to use to say that, oh, this happened already. This 400 years, it already took place. All right? Because we know that's a lie. That's a pure lie. All right? Okay, so let's find when this time frame did not happen. Turn in your Bibles with me. Let's go to the book of Exodus once again. We're in the book of Exodus chapter 12. Now, this is one of their favorite scriptures that they like to use. Now, I'm going to read it 2 different ways. I'm going to read it how they got it translated here in my King James Version, and then I'm going to read it how it appears in much older transcripts than what the King James Version was translated from, in the Samaritan Pentateuch, the Septuagint, and a couple of other older manuscripts read, okay? And we'll get a better understanding of just what this is talking about, okay? All right, so here it says, this is one of their favorite scriptures to try to say that our 400-year prophecy, the second part of Abraham's dream, has already taken place and that it's not taking place now. All right, verse 40 of chapter 12 reads, now the sojourn, that is the time that they spent there. Now the sojourn of the children of Yasrael who lived in Egypt, that is Mizraim. Now the sojourn of the children of Yasrael who lived in Mizraim, that is Egypt, was 430 years. Okay? And it came to pass at the end of the 430 years, on that very same day, it came to pass that all the armies of Yahuwah went out from the land of Mizraim, that is Egypt. All right, so this is one of their favorite scriptures, y'all. Y'all pay close attention that they like to try to use to say, hey, that 400 years already happened. Okay? Why? Because what does it say right here? It says the children of Yasrael lived in Egypt. The time that they lived in Egypt was 430 years, and at the end of that time, it came to pass that all the armies of Yahuwah went out from the land of Egypt, and definitely under the hand of Moses. Okay, so they like to say, oh, okay, they went into the land of Egypt, they were slaves for 430 years, and then they went out. Okay, under Moses. It's a couple things wrong with that, though. It's a few things wrong with that. All right. For one, we read in First Chronicles chapter 6 that Levi, being one of the first sons to enter from the time of Levi to the time of Moses being born, 2 generations. And we also already found out that a generation is 40 years, okay? So by the time Moses killed the Egyptian man, he was 40 years old. He went and he fled. He had 2 sons in the wilderness. He was gone for 40 years. He came back. So that's a total of, from the time they came in, the children of Yasrael, into Egypt, to the time that to Moses got ready to lead them out, according to First Chronicles, that is, chapter 6, then that would be a total, in Acts chapter 7 as well, starting in 22, that would be a total of 160 years, y'all. Okay, 160 years. But here we reading in Exodus, chapter 12, verse 40, it says they was in Egypt 430 years. Okay? 430 years. Not 160 years. So is the Bible lying? Is the Bible lying? Okay, that would make the Bible out to be a lie. If this 400-year prophecy already took place, if they was there for 430 years, according to Exodus, either Exodus chapter 12 is lying or First Chronicles chapter 6 is lying. Okay? It's got to be either that. Okay, that's problem. That's the first problem. Okay? And then the second problem is that he didn't tell, the Most High did not tell Abraham his descendants would be slaves in a foreign land for 430 years. He didn't say 430 years. How long did he say? Let's go back and read it. I'm going to go back because we got to get this right. Okay? Genesis chapter 15 again, y'all. We're going to stay. You might as well just mark your Bibles in Genesis chapter 15 because we're going to keep going back to it. All right? And it says in 15 and verse 13. Okay? He says, know certainly that your descendants will be strangers in a land that is not theirs and will serve them. They will afflict them 400 years. Did he say 400 or 430? Sound like 400 to me. So is the Most High a liar? First, now, in order for me to believe that this prophecy already took place, I got to believe 2 things. I got to believe the Most High is a liar when he's talking to Abraham. Okay? Because he told him 400 years. And then I got to believe that the Bible itself is a liar, God's written word, or the Most High's Elohim's written word. I got to believe that he's a liar and his word is a liar. Okay? Because Chronicles says that it was only 2 generations passed from Levi to Moses. And then it was 2 more generations passed from the time that Moses was born to the time he led the children out of the children of Yasrael out of Egypt, okay? For a total of 4 generations, for a total of 40 years each generation. That's 160 years, y'all. Okay? 160 years. So is the Bible lying and the Most High lying? Okay? Definitely not. Okay? Let's go back to Exodus and let's find out what this is really saying. Okay? We're going to read it again. Exodus chapter 12. Starting in 40, it says, now the sojourn of the children of Yasrael who lived in Egypt was 430 years. Okay? Now the children of Yasrael here is not talking about just the children. Now the children of Yasrael, who was Yasrael? Yasrael was Jacob, right? So this is where they try to confuse you, okay? They say the children of Yasrael, when really it should be the nation of Yasrael, okay? The people of Yasrael, because at this point, you're not talking about Jacob's actual 12 sons and his daughters that he had, okay? You're not talking about his children. You're talking about his descendants, okay? So by this time, we're not talking about his individual children. We're calling the whole nation the nation of Yasrael. So this would go even back before Jacob. We would refer to Abraham as part of that nation, even though Abraham came before Jacob or before Yasrael. You see what I'm saying? Because Yasrael came from Jacob, and then the nation ended up taking on the name of Abraham's grandson, Jacob. You see what I'm saying? The nation that came from Abraham's womb ended up taking on the name of his grandson, Jacob, which had his name changed to Yasrael. You see what I'm saying? So Abraham would have been included in that. Now, some of the ancient transcripts read verse 40 like this. It says, "Now the sojourn of the children of Yasrael who lived in Egypt and Canaan was 430 years." And Canaan. Okay, that's very important that they took that out. They took the word Canaan out. Where was the land of Canaan? Canaan was the land of Yasrael. Okay, that was the land of that was promised to Abraham. Okay, so now when we count from the time that Abraham was told by the Most High, he was told, "Get up and leave your father's house." Matter of fact, I don't want to just say it. Let's go to the scriptures and read it. Let's go to the scriptures and read it, y'all. Okay, keep your Bibles marked in Genesis 15. Let's turn back to Genesis chapter 12 real quick. All right. Let's go back to Genesis chapter 12, and let's read what the Most High told Abram so we can see exactly when this 430 years began, because obviously that's the problem. That's the problem. We don't know when this 430 years that's spoken of in over here in Exodus chapter 12 and verse 40. You know, it says they was 430 years in the land of Egypt and Canaan. All right. So let's find out when they came into the land of Canaan. Here's Genesis chapter 12, starting in verse 1. Now Yahuwah had said to Abram, "Get out of your country, from your family, and from your father's house to a land I will show you. I will make you a great nation. I will bless you and make your name great, and you shall be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and I will curse him who curses you. And in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed." So Abram departed as Yahuwah had spoken to him, and Lot went with him. And Abram was 75 years old when he departed from Haran. Then Abram took Sarai his wife, and Lot his brother's son, and all their possessions that they had gathered, and the people whom they had acquired in Haran, and they departed to go to the land of Canaan. So they came to the land of Canaan. Abram passed through the land to the place of Shechem, as far as the terebinth tree of Moreh, and the Canaanites were there in the land. All right? So here we can see that Abram was commanded to get out of his father's house and go into a foreign country named Canaan. Okay? He was supposed to go into this foreign country named Canaan, and the reason being is because his father's house worshipped false gods, y'all. They were false god worshipers. Okay? They worshiped many false gods. Abram was from the land that we now know as Iraq, ancient Babylon. Okay? They called it Babylon, which is where we get the word Babel from, which just means confusion. Just blah, 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 blah. That's Babel. Okay? You don't know what's going on. And that's how their religion is. They got so many gods, they don't know who to serve. They don't know who running who. They don't know what to chain of command. And they don't know. It's Babel. It's Babylon. Okay? That's where Abram was from. He was told by the Most High, get away from there. Get out of your father's house and go into this land of Canaan. All right? And I'm going to give this land to you. All right? Now, when he went to the land of Canaan, We won't read all of it right now, but when you read the book of Genesis, I recommend reading that whole book. The book of Genesis is one of the best books you can read, really. Genesis and Revelation, that's two of the best books, I like in the Bible. But, read the book of Genesis definitely, it'll help you to see, and really open your eyes to a lot of things that's going on, even in our present day and time, But when you read the things that happened to Abram, while he was in that land, you'll see, just like it says over here in Exodus, it says that they would be afflicted, just like it says over here in Exodus chapter 40. It says the sojourn of the children of Yasrael who lived in Mizraim was 430 years. Okay? And it says, back in chapter 15 of Genesis, we're just skipping around a little bit now. He says in chapter 15, verse 13, "No, certainly your descendants will be strangers in a land not theirs and will serve them." We know that that's what happened. They ended up serving the Egyptians. And they was also afflicted in the land of Canaan. Okay? For 430 years is what Exodus says. Okay? So how do we reconcile that Exodus is telling us 430 years, Chronicles and Acts together is telling us 160 years? Okay? That's because it didn't start, the time period of 430 years did not start with Jacob. It did not start with who is Yasrael and his children. It didn't start when they entered the land. If you count 430 years from then, it makes the Bible a liar and it makes the Most High a liar, because the Most High said 400 years. He didn't even say 430. So he was 30 years late saving his people, according to these liars, these Jewish and Christian liars. The Most High would have been 30 years late saving his people. But really what it was is that it was 430 years if you count from the time Abram went into the land of Canaan. If you count from that time, and you read the scripture correctly, where it says in verse 40 of chapter 12, it says, "Now the sojourn of the children of Yasrael who lived in Egypt and Canaan was 430 years. So you got to do those two things. You got to translate that scripture correctly, where it says and Canaan, and then you got to count from the time Abraham came into Canaan. Okay? So from the time that Abraham, who was counted as a part of this nation of Yasrael, you see what I'm saying? He's the founder of that nation of Yasrael, so of course he's a part of it. You see what I'm saying? It's not called the nation of Abraham. It's named after his grandson, Yasrael. You see what I'm saying? But Abraham is the founder of that nation, so he's a part of it, even though it's named after his grandson. So it says the children of Yasrael, really the nation of Yasrael. You see what I'm saying? They was strangers in a foreign land. They was for 430 years. Egypt and Canaan. Now, when you count from the time Abraham entered into the land of Canaan, and he did everything that he did in the book of Genesis. Like I said, you need to go through and read that whole book. He did all the stuff he did. He had wars. He had slaves. He went into Egypt. There was a famine. All type of stuff happened. See, so he was afflicted in that land. And then Isaac, you see what I'm saying? Then Jacob ended up running from his brother Esau in that same land. Ended up running all the way back to where Abram was from, trying to get away from Esau. You see what I'm saying? So this is where this 430 years takes place at. From the time of Abraham all the way up until the time, that Moses led the people of the children of Yasrael, the nation of Yasrael, out of the land of Egypt. So the Bible is not a lie. 1 Chronicles chapter 6 is not a lie when it says only 2 generations passed from Levi, from the time Levi and his brothers and his daddy Yasrael, when they entered into the land, until the time that he had his great-grandson, until the time that he had his grandson Moses, and Aaron and his granddaughter Miriam, only 80 years passed by. And then another 80 years passed by from the time Moses was born to the time he led the children out, the children of Yasrael out of Egypt, okay? So the Bible is not a lie. That was 160 years. Then you add up all that other time from the time that Abraham entered into the land of Canaan up until the time where they went into Egypt. That's where you get your 430 years from, okay? 430 years. And the most important part of that is what? It's 430 years. The Most High said 400 years is how long we would be in a foreign land that is not our own. You see what I'm saying? 400 years. So the Most High is not a liar either. And let's go into the second part of this prophecy now. Since we know that we were in that land, our ancestors were in the land of Egypt for 4 generations. Because the iniquity of the Amorites was not complete yet, according to chapter 15 of Genesis. 4 generations, and then they came out, just like Abraham's dream said. Okay? They came out, and they went into the Amorites' land, and they killed the Amorites, and they took their land, and they killed a lot of other groups of people, and took their land, and, possessed their land. Okay? That was the first part. So where did the 400 years come in at? And then we spoke about it earlier in Jeremiah, where he said, not only are we going to serve for 400 years in this land, this is going to be a land that not even our ancestors knew about. Okay? Not even our ancestors knew about. Other Bible prophecies, we won't go into right now, but other Bible prophecies speak of it as a land of the strange language. See, the Egyptian language was not strange to our ancestors. They knew how to speak the Egyptian language. Okay? They knew how to speak Kemet. They knew how to speak ancient Phoenician. See what I'm saying? It was not a strange language to them. And it was not a strange land because Abraham himself was in the land. Okay? Abraham himself, our forefather, was in the land. So when did the 400 years take place? Let's find out. Let's fast forward a little bit. We found out when that 4 generations took place. Let's find out when the 400 years takes place now. All right, let's go back to Genesis again. We're going to read this prophecy again, and we're really going to understand it. That's what we're going to get. All our getting, we're going to get understanding. All right. Now it says, once again, starting in 12. Now when the sun was going down, a deep sleep fell upon Abram, and behold, horror and great darkness fell upon him. It says horror. See, I want to point that out this time, that it says horror and great darkness fell upon him. This was a nightmare that Abram was finna have. Okay, verse 13 of chapter 15 of Genesis. Then he said to Abram, know certainly that your descendants will be strangers in a land that is not theirs, and will serve them, and they will afflict them 400 years. Okay, so that part of that horror was in the land of Egypt. The hard bondage that our people was under, that our ancestors was under, and then the fact that they was killing all of the male children. That's a horrible situation. Horror is what they inflicted upon our people. But it was going to get worse than that in the 400 years. Okay, so let's see what it says further. It says, the nation whom they serve I will judge, afterward they shall come out with great possessions. Okay? The nation whom they serve I will judge, and afterwards they shall come out with great possessions. 400 years. That's how long the second part of this prophecy is supposed to take place, all right? So let's see, when did the second part of this prophecy take place, okay? To find that out, we're going to have to go back a little bit into our history, okay, and into a little time period called 33 CE, okay? 33 CE, okay? We got to go back to this time period. Now, what happened in 33 CE? This is the year that our Adonai, Yahshua, our Lord Jesus, our Lord Jesus Christ, or our Adonai, Messiah Yahshua, was crucified by the Romans, okay? by the white Romans, by the Gentile heathen Romans, turned over to them by his own people to be crucified. By his own people, the Yahudites, the tribe of Yahudah, the tribe of Judah. You see? Those are the people who turned him over to these Romans to be crucified. Now, before he was crucified, he prophesied. He prophesied a lot, actually. One of the prophecies he gave, I want to cover it right now. Okay? Let's go to Luke 21. So this is very imperative to finding out when this 400-year prophecy started taking place, okay, and when it's going to be fulfilled. Let's go to Luke chapter 21. Skip over to what they call the New Testament. You know, like I say, there is no New Testament. You know, there is no new contract. The Most High said, I'm the same today, tomorrow, and yesterday, all right? But for argument's sake, we'll skip over to the New Testament. All right, so let's go to Luke 21, and let's read this prophecy that Messiah Yahshua was given to the tribe of Yahudah and actually to all of his people at the time, telling them just what was going to happen because he knew that they was going to kill him, you know, a little later in the year 33 CE. He knew they was going to do it. He knew it. He was a prophet. You know, he was the son of the Most High Yahuwah. He knew it. They was going to kill him. Okay, so let's see what he prophesied would happen because of their rejection of him and them murdering him and getting innocent blood upon their hands and killing the son of Elohim. Let's see what he said. Starting in chapter 21 of Luke, verse 5. He says, Then as some spoke of the temple, how it was adorned with beautiful stones and donations, he said, These things which you see, the days will come which not one stone shall be left upon another that shall not be thrown down. So they asked him, saying, Teacher, but when will these things be, and what sign will there be when these things are about to take place? So he just told them that this temple they looking at, oh, how beautiful it is. He said that whole temple going to be destroyed. It's going to be, it won't be one stone left standing upon another stone by the time that temple has been done with. Okay? And now they want to know when this is going to happen. So we see this horrible thing that the Messiah Yahshua is prophesying is going to happen. And the reason he's prophesying these things are going to happen is because he knows that these people are going to reject him. Let's skip forward to verse 20 of 21. He says, But when you see Jerusalem surrounded by armies, then know that its desolation is near. Let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Let those who are in the midst of her depart. Let not those who are in the country enter her, for these are the days of vengeance. Vengeance for what? For rejecting Messiah Yahshua and killing him and putting innocent blood upon themselves and their children. That's what the vengeance is for. He says, These are the days of vengeance, that all things which are written may be fulfilled. What things are written? We talking about this prophecy of Abraham. The things written that he's talking about, those are prophecies. That's one of the prophecies that got to be fulfilled. That prophecy that Abraham received, that his descendants would be in a foreign land 400 years. Okay, so we'll get back to that in a second. He says that these things are written, that all things which are written may be fulfilled. In 23, he says, But woe to those who are pregnant and to those who are nursing babies in those days, for there will be great distress in the land. What land? The land of Yasrael. And wrath upon this people. What people? The people of Yahudah and Benjamin. The people of Yasrael. The people of Judea. Okay? Wrath upon this people. Distress in the land of Yasrael. 24 says, They will fall by the edge of the sword and be led away captive into all nations. All nations. And Jerusalem will be trampled by Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles are fulfilled. 24 says they're gonna fall by the edge of the sword and be led captive into all nations. Okay? Now this is part of that 400-year prophecy. Okay? So we can't just be talking about the land of Egypt. All right? It says all nations. We're going to be led captive into all nations, and we're going to fall by the edge of the sword. Because these are the days of vengeance. Vengeance for what? For rejecting the Messiah. In the day of our visitation, we rejected the Messiah. Our ancestors rejected the Messiah. They killed him, the son of Elohim. And they put his blood upon themselves and upon their children, which is us. Okay? All right? So when did this prophecy that since Messiah Yasrael died not too long after he gave this prophecy, right? He died in 33 CE. When did this prophecy take place? Let's look up something. I hate to use sources outside the Bible, but we're going to use a little secular history to look this up. All right? We're going to fast forward from 33 CE to a little date called 70 AD. All right? 70 AD. What happened in 70 AD? We can go to Wikipedia, but I don't trust Wikipedia too much. But I'll trust it on this one little source I'm about to quote, because there's numerous other sources to back it up. You don't have to get this information from Wikipedia. It's pretty much public knowledge, people. It's pretty much public knowledge. Wikipedia only lies about the things that can't be directly proven, as I like to say, you know. So I will read this, my sources Wikipedia right now. It says, the siege of Jerusalem in the year of 70 CE was the decisive event of the first Yehudite Roman war. The Roman army, led by the future Emperor Titus, with Tiberius Julius Alexander as his second in command, besieged and conquered the city of Jerusalem, which had been controlled by Judean rebel factions since 66 CE. Following the Jerusalem riots of 66, when the Judean Free Government was formed in Jerusalem. Okay? According to Josephus, 1.1 million non-combatants, that's just civilians, non-soldiers, died in Jerusalem, mainly as a result of the violence and famine. Many of the casualties were observant Yahudites from across the world, such as Babylon and Egypt, who had traveled to Jerusalem wanting to celebrate the yearly Passover, but instead got trapped in the chaotic siege. He also tells us that 97,000 were enslaved. 97,000 were enslaved. Okay? That goes right back to Genesis 15, all right? Where he says that they would serve this nation that was gonna, for 400 years. That's what slaves do, they serve. Okay? So they enslaved 97,000, they killed 1.1 million. Some people think the numbers are lower, a little lower. Some people think a little higher. The point is, they killed pretty much everybody in the city. That's the point, okay? Imagine them coming to your city and killing every single person there with the exception of maybe like a few neighborhoods, okay? That's what they did, maybe the exception of one neighborhood. They killed pretty much everybody that was left. They enslaved them, okay? That's what happened. Jerusalem was a major city, so imagine them going to New York and they killed everybody in New York and left one little borough. I think that's what they called it in New York. They left one little borough and then they made them people slaves. Okay, that's what happened. All right. Now, not only did they do that, they also forbid that any Yahudites or any of the children of Yasrael who identified as being a Yahudite could any longer live in this area. Not only could you not live in Jerusalem, you couldn't live in the surrounding area, which was known as Judea. So what happened? What happened to the people who was living there? The people who didn't die in the city, what were they told to do? Let's go back and read it again. Messiah Yasrael told them in verse 20, he said, when you see Jerusalem surrounded by armies, what armies? The Roman armies that was going to come in 70 AD, 70 CE. Then know that its desolation is near. He said, let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Let those who are in the midst of her depart, and let not those who are in the country enter her. All right? When he says those, he's talking to his people. All right? He's telling his people, don't even go in that direction. And if you're already over there, flee from that direction. Flee to the mountains, okay? So where did they flee to? All right? What mountains did they flee to? All right? Where did they go? What did they do? Okay? They ran in several different directions. You see what I'm saying? But one of the main directions that they ran to would have been Egypt. See, they ran into Egypt because where did they always run to? This is where our people always ran to when they got into trouble. That's where Abraham went when there was a famine. That's where Jacob went when there was a famine in the land. You see what I'm saying? That's several of the kings of Yahudah and Yasrael went to the Pharaoh of Egypt when they was being threatened by other nations to get his help. See, that's what we always did. We ran to the Egyptians. That's what we was used to. Remember earlier I said that we looked like the Egyptians. And with 160 years, or if you want to count from the time of Abraham, 430 years to the time we left, and well over 1,000 years, 2,000 years by this point, of mixing with the Egyptians and running over there every time we get in trouble. This is what we are accustomed to doing. So what did we do when the Romans started chasing us? We ran to Egypt. What did we do when the Romans found us in Egypt? We ran to West Africa. You see what I'm saying? See, that was a land that was historically not populated. Historically, the only lands in Africa that were populated were Egypt, which was Mizraim, and Cush. And then you had the land of the south, which was, basically still Ethiopia, or Cush, should I say, which was a little further south into the land. So it was the eastern Africa that was inhabited, the northeastern Africa that was inhabited. Western Africa and Southern Africa was known as a, no man's land. It was a wilderness. That's why when the children of Yasrael started running, out of the land of Egypt, when Pharaoh finally let them go, when he was forced to let them go, they started wandering around. He said, look, they wandering, they lost in the land. They lost in the wilderness. The wilderness has entangled them. Okay? Let's look at that scripture real quick. Okay, so let's turn our Bibles to the book of Exodus again. And let's go to chapter 14 this time. We're going to read verses 1 through 3, okay? It says, now Yahuwah spoke to Moses, saying, speak to the children of Yasrael that they turn and camp before Pi-Hahiroth, between Migdal and the sea, opposite Baal-Zephon, you shall camp before it by the sea. For Pharaoh will say of the children of Yasrael, they are bewildered by the land, the wilderness has closed them in. So you can see that here it is, the children of Yasrael, they're walking, okay? First of all, they're leaving the land of Mizraim, which is Egypt. And they're walking, and not only are they walking, they're walking with well over 1 million people, probably well over 3 million people, actually. They're walking with all of these people, women, children, old people, animals, you see what I'm saying, and crippled people. So they're walking very slowly, okay? So this this wilderness that they get entangled in, it's not that far from Egypt because they're walking. So here it is, they haven't even walked that far from Egypt, and here it is, Pharaoh saying they are entangled in the wilderness. So I said all of that just to prove the point that, most of Africa at that point was a wilderness. You see, they hadn't even left Egypt. They hadn't even went that far before they were in the wilderness. Okay? So the only West Africa and South Africa was wilderness. Okay? So when our ancestors fled in 70 AD and they ran over to Egypt and other parts of as well of Africa and Europe and everywhere, all nations under the heaven, just like the Most High said. But one of the main directions we went was Egypt, was west. We ran back west, and we kept running west until we got to West Africa, what we know as West Africa today. You see, and we need to do a little research on a people called the Igbo people. Okay, so I just want to read a little excerpt from this article I found on LinkedIn, and it's called "Where Did Igbo Originate From?" Okay, so let's do a little history on the Igbo people. It says, according to Aguilera people, Aguilera is the first son of Eri who migrated from Egypt. The origin of Enri is Egypt about 2 centuries ago, and the father of Enri was called Gad. Gad was the son of Jacob, while Jacob was the son of Isaac, and Isaac was the son of Abraham. The family tree of Enri was traced from the origin of Abraham, who was the favorite child of God. A man called Eri, the progenitor of Nedigbo, lived in Egypt and was the special advisor on religious matters to the 5th dynasty of pharaohs of Egypt. Okay, this is from a website called Pulse NG. All right, and it's from an article entitled "Here's Why There's a Possibility That This Tribe is from Israel," talking about the Igbo people. It says they are known as the 3rd largest of the 3 major ethnic groups in Nigeria. The typical Igbo communities are found in southeastern part of Nigeria. Okay, so they're from Nigeria. And according to oral tradition and many writers of Igbo history, Eri is to the Igbos what Aduduwa is to Yoruba. But unlike Aduduwa, whose father is unknown, Eri was the 5th son of Gad, the 7th son of Jacob. He was said to have migrated from Egypt with a group of companions just before the exodus of the Israelites from Egypt thousands of years ago. Eri and his group were said to have traveled by water and finally arrived at the confluence of Izu and Omabala rivers, located in present-day Aguilera and Anambra State. We were not told how long the voyage took to get to the promised land. What we were told is that Eri and his group was divinely instructed to make the confluence of Izu and Omabala rivers their final destination. They would move into the hinterland and make a settlement in the present-day Aguilera. It was here that Eri lived and died. Meanwhile, amongst Eri's children was Aguilar, the eldest son who took over from his father after his demise. It was him who appended the name of his father Eri to his name and founded Aguilera by calling the settlement where his father Eri died and he lived Aguilera. However, apart from the story of how they came into being, the Igbos also share some similar practices with the biblical Jews. And among the Igbos, these traditional practices predate the coming of the Christian missionaries. Okay, so they was already doing stuff in the Bible. They wasn't savages over here in West Africa. They was already doing stuff like what the Bible said for them to do before any Christians came and civilized them, so to speak, okay? Examples of shared traditional practices between the Jews and the Igbos include circumcising male children 8 days after birth, refraining from eating unclean or taboo foods, mourning the dead for 7 days, and celebrating the new moon. Supporting this belief is Daniel Liss, a foremost researcher on Jewish identification among the Igbo from the University of Basel, Switzerland. Now, we know we're not Jewish, and we know the Jewish people are not related to us, but this just shows you how they try to sprinkle in, a little bit of their salt anywhere they can. He affirms that there has been a clear continuity of Jewish identity among the Igbo. It's not just something that happened yesterday, he said. In addition to the shared practices between the Jews and the Igbos, there is a striking evidence that forces one to see a link between the Igbos and the ancient civilization of Egypt. It is the ancient Igbo pyramids, which is also known as the Ensude pyramids. The ancient Igbo pyramids or Ensude pyramids is a testimony of ancient civilization among the Igbos. Nobody knows when it was built, but archaeologists have said that the pyramids have lasted centuries and are believed to have been built at the same time the first or second wave of Egyptian pyramids were built by the Nubians. Okay, so I won't read the whole article. I'll stop right there. But clearly we can see that the Igbo people, one of the tribes being the Nigerians, are ancient people. The Igbo people are ancient people who lived in West Africa and were not originally from West Africa. Where were they from? They were from East Africa. Where is East Africa? It's what we call the Middle East today, Israel and Egypt and Ethiopia. So together, Ethiopia, Egypt, Israel, Palestine, the whole Middle East, that's what makes up East Africa in ancient times, okay? So the Israelites were East Africans. The Egyptians were East Africans, all right? The Ethiopians were East Africans. And, of course, African wasn't even the name of the land. We just using it, we're going to use the names that we know right now. So we know that Ethiopia wasn't called Ethiopia, Egypt wasn't called Egypt, and Israel was not called Israel, okay? We know that, and the Middle East wasn't called the Middle East, but we're going to use the names we know, and we'll tell you that Ethiopia, Egypt, Israel, and everything in the Middle East was part of East Africa. So 70 A.D., once again, what happened? That prophecy from Luke that Yasrael prophesied would happen. Okay, Jerusalem surrounded by armies. Everybody in Judea got to flee into the mountains. And flee for safety into the wilderness. That's what they did. They ran to Egypt because they hard-headed. A lot of them hard-headed. He said flee to the mountains. Where did they flee? They went to another city. They got chased down. They left Egypt and came into West Africa. Okay. And most likely met up with some of their brothers who had already maybe went that way earlier, even though it wasn't a large population of them. You see what I'm saying? Went there, maybe hundreds of years before that and started communities. You see? So the Igbo people definitely have a history, or oral and written history, of being part of the Yasraelite people. They definitely have a history of being part of the Yasraelite people, and being from the Yasraelite people, as well as being from Egypt. They even built pyramids, okay? So this just further shows us that in 70 A.D., yes, they did go into Egypt. Yes, they did run out of Egypt, run into West Africa, run into South Africa, run from West Africa to South Africa, so on and so forth, back and forth until the whole Africa was populated. Okay? That's how that went down. And then we can fast forward a little bit, okay? We fast forward a little bit to this thing, called the transatlantic slave trade. Okay, so we want to talk about the transatlantic slave trade, all right? So let's get a little bit of wording straight from the horse's mouth. We're gonna go and to this Edomite website, historychannel.com or history.com. Okay, and let's get it straight from their mouth. Where these slaves came from, since they the ones that took them. Okay, or their ancestors are the ones who took them. It says slaves brought to the United States represented about 3.6% of the total number of Africans transported to the New World, or around 388,000 people, considerably less than the number transported to colonies in the Caribbean or to Brazil. Of those Africans who arrived in the United States, nearly half came from two regions. Senegambia, the areas comprising the Senegal and Gambia rivers and the land between them, are today's Senegal, Gambia, Guinea-Bissau, and Mali, and West and Central Africa. West and Central Africa. Where did the Yahudites flee to when they left Eastern Africa? They fled to Western Africa, which is modern-day Nigeria. The Igbo land is where they fled to, okay? It says, including what is now Angola, Congo, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and Gabon. The Gambia River, running from the Atlantic into Africa, was a key waterway for the slave trade. At its height, about 1 out of every 6 West African slaves came from this area. In addition to the nearly 50% of the total number of enslaved Africans in the United States from these two regions, a considerable number of slaves had their origins on the so-called Gold Coast or Slave Coast, which is now the West African nation of Ghana, as well as neighboring parts of the Windward Coast, now Ivory Coast. Others originated in the Bight of Biafra, including parts of present-day eastern Nigeria and Cameroon, an inlet of the Atlantic on Africa's western coast that was a hub of extensive slave dealing operations. So here we see it straight from their mouth. A majority of the slaves came from what we know as the Gold Coast, Ghana, West Africa. It's all West Africa, y'all. From the northern point down to the southern point, they snatched most of those slaves in the transatlantic slave trade from West Africa. Where did the West Africans come from? They came from East Africa. They were a product of the Roman armies and the Arab and Edomite armies in 70 AD, and the confederated armies of the people of 70 AD coming all against the Yahudites and chasing them out of their land into West Africa. And this was a prophecy which was fulfilled. This was a prophecy of Yahshua, which we call Jesus. This was fulfilled because we rejected him as our Messiah and killed him. Our ancestors killed him. And because of this, we had to run into West Africa, leave our homeland, and take on new identities, okay? So this is who the West Africans are, all right? Now we know who the West Africans are, and we know that the West Africans came from East Africa. They were originally Israelite people. They were originally children of Yasrael, who lived in that area or that land or around Jerusalem, and they had to flee for their lives. And West Africa, once again, that's not the only place they ran to. That's just the main place they ran to. The place where they ran to overall is everywhere, because they were to be dispersed under all nations under heaven, okay? All right, so they ran into West Africa. They started new lands. And they was actually left alone and left to dwell in peace for over 1,000 years, actually. Okay, because we got 70 AD going on. When did Columbus sail the ocean blue? He sailed the ocean blue in 1492. All right. so he discovered the New World in 1492, the so-called New World. Okay. That's what they tell us out of their own mouth. He sailed the ocean blue in 1492. He discovered America. We know it's a lie. Okay? And came over here and started this new great country, right? Okay? So that would tell me if I subtract 70 years from that, they give me 1422. So that just tells me that our ancestors were able to dwell in peace for about 1,400 years. Maybe a little closer to 1,300 because the slave trade, actually started a little bit before, the Europeans, the white people got a hold of us. The Arabs, they started it off in the 1200s, or 1300s or so, somewhere around there. So, our ancestors were good for around 1,200 years. The Most High blessed them in this new land, and they started new empires, actually built great civilizations, that we can go back and research. And from West Africa, built great civilizations. That was our people. That was Israelite people. Those were Levites and Yehudites and Binyam and people from Binyamin, you see, who built those great civilizations of West Africa, okay? And even went from East and West Africa. Some of them went up into Europe, okay? All right, and they helped build the civilizations of Europe as well. But in 1492, we know Columbus sailed the ocean blue, so he got this new land. So now they want to come in and get some people to help them build this new land up, okay? Get some people to help them build this new land up, all right? So let's find out. So remember, we're in the second part of this prophecy. So let's read it again so we can refresh our memory. Remember, I told you we're going to keep going back. Genesis chapter 15. Let's refresh our memory on what we're talking about here. This time we'll start in verse 13. It says, "Then he said to Abram, No, certainly, your descendants will be strangers in the land that is not theirs, and will serve them. They will afflict them 400 years. The nation whom they serve I will judge. Afterward they shall come out with great possession." So why are we talking all this stuff about West Africa and 70 AD and 33 CE and prophecy from Yasrael? Why are we talking about all this? It's because it's dealing with the second part of this prophecy, or this dream, or this vision that Abraham had, this horrible nightmare that Abraham had about his descendants being slaves in a foreign land for 400 years. Okay? It's dealing with that. Okay? That's why we're talking about all of this. Who were the slaves? They were Yasraelites. Okay? We know that they rejected the Messiah. It's because they served false gods, like we read in Jeremiah earlier. They served false gods and rejected the Messiah, and rejected all of the prophecies and all of the prophets, and eventually they were judged and cast out of their own land. And they ran over there to West Africa, okay, and started new empires, okay. But when Columbus sailed the ocean blue, and they had this new land, hey, we need some people to help us build this up. And since we already got these African people over here that the Arabs are enslaving, let's get down with that. Let's get in on that, okay? So that's what they did. They got in on that. And they started bringing slaves from the west coast of Africa down through the islands, okay? They started bringing them over into the islands, okay? So now we got Yasraelites, children of Yasrael, who then ran over to West Africa to get away from the Romans, being enslaved by the descendants of the Romans. The irony, the fucking irony in that. I mean, excuse my language, but the irony in that is just crazy. Okay, so let's see exactly when this 400 years would have started. We already established that they lying when they try to say the 430 years, oh, it already happened. They are bold-faced lie. It did not happen already. The 430 years was covering the time from Abraham to Moses leading the children of Yasrael out of Egypt. Not from the time that they went into the land of Egypt. Okay? It's covering the whole time period. So that and we know that the Most High said it would be 400 years and not 430, like the book of Exodus said, and like they try to lie and say that applies to ancient time periods. It applies to our time period. So let's see, since we know that we are We know that the West Africans are the children of Yasrael who ran in 70 AD from the Romans and ended up getting caught back up to around 1,200 years later by the same people. Okay, since we know who they are now, and we know that those same people started snatching them up and bringing them over to America to be their slave and help them build this new country. Let's find out when this officially started. Let's find out when the recorded history says this officially started. Okay, this second part of this horrible, horrible nightmare that our forefather Abraham had. Let's see when that second part of that dream started taking place. Okay? The part that says they was going to be slaves for 400 years. See, maybe Abraham was like, man, okay, we can deal with 160 years. That's kind of rough, but that's just a few generations. But now 400 years, it says that was a horrible dream for Abraham. Okay, so this is from encyclopedia.com, and this information can be found on Wikipedia. It can be found on Encyclopedia Britannica or Americana or Mexicana or your local almanac or just about any place you want to look it up. Just like that date 70 AD, this information I'm about to give you is pretty public knowledge, okay? All right, so I'm going to read this from encyclopedia.com. It says, it's entitled, Africans Arrive in Virginia, 1619. One stormy day in August of 1619, a Dutch man of war with about 20 Africans on board entered port at the English colony of Jamestown, Virginia. Little is known of these newly arrived people. The first Africans to set foot on the North American continent. At this time, the slave trade between Africa and the English colonies had not yet been established, and it is unlikely that the 20 or so newcomers became slaves upon their arrival. They were perhaps considered indentured servants who worked under contract for a certain period of time, usually 7 years, before they were granted freedom and their rights accorded to other settlers. Their historic arrival, however, marked the beginning of an atrocious trend in colonial America, in which the people of Africa were taken unwillingly from their motherland and consigned to lifelong slavery. The robust economic growth of the English colonies was caused largely by this exploitative institution. Now, that's very important. So these English colonies only grew because they had these African slaves, okay? Now, they try to downplay it a little bit and try to say, oh, maybe they was indentured servants. No, they were not indentured servants. They were slaves. The article even starts off by saying, a Dutch man of war brought them in, all right? So he wasn't no regular trader. He was a man of war. And these prisoners with him were spoils of war. They were trophies, all right? So he definitely sold them as slaves, all right? And the English settlers would have been familiar with slavery from that time that they spent in England, all right? Because slavery was already going on over there with the Arabs and stuff and with a lot of the white people over there, all right? So they would have been familiar with it, all right? So a Dutch man of war brought them in. They were not indentured servants and did not get freed after 7 years. They were the first slaves. And you can look up several other articles. Like I said, this article can be found, in so many different places. They may report it a little differently here or there, but hey, that's what Esau does. He tries to switch up the facts, okay? So 1619, that's when this ship rolled into Jamestown, Virginia, and with the first African slaves to touch the North American continent, all right? To touch the North American continent. And those African slaves that touched that North American continent marked the beginning, okay? It was actually, this actually happened in August of 1619, all right? It happened in August of 1619. The previous month of 1619, July 30th, is when the first government of America was established in Jamestown. That was when they got their first. They try to tell you, 1700s and all of that. No, that's when the Constitution was written. The first government was established in 1619 in July, and they wasted no time. Immediately after they established their first government in Jamestown, what did they do? The very next month, they went got them some slaves. That's what they did. The very next month, they first government in July 30th. Probably not even a month later. Because we know the slaves arrived in August, but they could have got there, let's say, August 15th, maybe the middle of August. So from July 30th to August 15th, that's 2 weeks. So hey, let's establish this new government, in Jamestown, Virginia, and our first order of business is go get us some darkies. Let's go get us some slaves and help build this country. 2 weeks later, first order of business, y'all. Okay? No less than 28 days later. All right, they went and got them some slaves. All right, 1619, August of 1619. That's when this started. Now, why do we say the 400-year prophecy? A lot of people might say, oh, yeah, well, they already had slaves in the islands in South America. And so I understand that. They did already have slaves down there. But guess what? Their slavery has not lasted 400 years. All right? It has not lasted 400 years. A lot of those colonies where the slaves were, some of those colonies like Haiti and some of the other ones, they rose up against their slave masters. And some of them overthrew their slave masters. And in a lot of those places, slavery was abolished, not too long after it started, maybe 100 or 200 years after it started, so on and so forth. They did not, long story short, South America and the islands did not suffer 400 years of slavery, even though they come from the same people that we do, okay? I'm not like some of these Israelite brothers out here going to try to separate them from us, all they different tribes. No, they came from West Africa just like we did, okay? But their slavery in South America has not lasted 400 years, all right? We are still slaves to this day. Anybody that want to deny it is lost, okay? At this point, they got everybody enslaved, but I guess we just got thicker chains on. They got all races enslaved in America right now. But we have definitely been, slaves for 400 years or 399 years and some months, if you want to, be exact about it. Let me see, what are we in? Yeah, about 4 months. 4 or 5 months. 399 years and 4 or 5 months we've been slaves. All right, I don't feel like doing the math. Y'all can do it from August 2019, all right? Yeah, we've been slaves for 400 years over here in North America. South America has not been enslaved that long. Like I said, they overthrew the slave masters, and then you got people who say, oh, well, didn't the slaves get freed in the 1800s? Wrong again. We did not get freed in the 1800s because you had the vagrancy laws that popped up right after our so-called freedom, and that stated that any vagrant could be arrested. All right. So what was a vagrant? A vagrant was somebody who wasn't doing anything productive with their time. What would a newly released slave be doing if he just left his plantation? He doesn't have any land, any property, any money, and really don't know quite what to do because he's been a slave his whole life. He probably just going to be hanging around somewhere. And guess what? They made that illegal. They called him a vagrant. They locked him back up. And once he was locked up, he had no rights. They could put him back into slavery. Okay? So I don't want to hear that noise about we were set free. Also, once again, freeing the slaves, that was just an amendment to the Constitution. Okay? All right, it's just a clause that they put in there. They can go back and they didn't change anything. They can go back and switch that any time and annul it. Okay, and then you're once again a slave. So they didn't free the slaves. And you look at our struggle from the time that they so-called freed us with the vagrancy laws, and then after the vagrancy laws, we had the KKK, and they still here to this day. And then After the KKK was here for a while, then we start having all these other hate groups pop up, and we had all of the people get locked up for bootlegging and stuff like that in the 40s and 50s and 60s. You got MLK marching, and you got Malcolm X, and all of that's going on. The so-called fight for human for civil rights. We're not even asking y'all to give us equal rights. We just asking you to be civil. They won't even be civil. They won't even be fair and not knock us upside our head. Still a slave. We couldn't go to the same schools. We couldn't drink from the same water fountains. We couldn't get jobs. They locked us up for not being able to get the jobs that they wouldn't give us in the first place. You see what I'm saying? Our women were made into prostitutes and, forced into selling their bodies. Same thing as being raped during the so-called physical slavery. You see what I'm saying? To this day, they shoot young black men down in the streets. I don't care if you're a hood young black man, with a hoodie on, or I don't care if you just getting married today, or I don't care if you're just selling some cigarettes in the hood. I don't care if you leaving the college campus. I don't care what walk of life you come from as a black man. They shooting you dead in the streets. Okay? So we still slaves to this day. So I don't want to hear all of that noise about, they got to, the island. The Africans were in the islands as slaves first. No, they wasn't slaves for 400 years. Okay? So when you add up the fact that 1619 is the day that the first Africans got to North America, and when you do your North American history and find out what the United States government has done to the Africans who have been here for the past 399 years and some months, then you will quickly realize that, hey, these people fit those prophecies, okay? They fit the prophecies of the people who would be slaves. Now, let's see what some of those prophecies are. See, because we already established that, this second part of the prophecy started taking place in 1619, all right? So let's look at what some of those, prophecies are. We're going to go to the book of Deuteronomy to see, just what will be happening to this people during this 400 years of slavery in this foreign land that's not theirs, that neither them nor their ancestors knew about. All right, so we're going to read Deuteronomy chapter 28, and let's go to verse 15. All right, we're going to read about some of these things we're going to be going through in this land. It says, "It shall come to pass, if you do not obey the voice of Yahuwah your Elohim," we didn't, our ancestors didn't obey, "to observe carefully all his commandments and his statutes," we didn't, "which I command you today, that all these curses will come upon you and overtake you. Cursed shall you be in the city. Cursed shall you be in the country. Cursed shall be your basket and your kneading bowl. Cursed shall be the fruit of your body and the produce of your land, the increase of your cattle and the offspring of your flocks. Cursed shall you be when you come in. Cursed shall you be when you go out. Yahuwah will send on you cursing, confusion, and rebuke in all that you set your hand to do, until you are destroyed and until you perish quickly because of the wickedness of your doings in which you have forsaken me." Remember, they started worshiping other gods in Jeremiah, like we read earlier, right? They rejected the Messiah, like we read earlier, right? In Luke, right? The Messiah said they was going to be judged. Here's the judgment. 21 of Deuteronomy 28, chapter 28, verse 21. "Yahuwah will make the plague cling to you until he has consumed you from the land which you are going to possess." He said he's going to make the plague cling to you. All right, anybody familiar with HIV, AIDS, gonorrhea, syphilis, and all this other crap, high blood pressure, diabetes, all this stuff. What do they call it? Sickle cell. You see what I'm saying? Cancer. It says he will make the plague cling to you until he has consumed you from the land which you are going to possess. Verse 22. Yahuwah will strike you with consumption, with fever, with inflammation, with severe burning fever, with the sword, scorching, mildew. They shall pursue you until you perish. And your heavens, which are over your head, shall be bronze, and the earth which is under you shall be iron. Yahuwah will change the rain of your land to powder and dust. From the heaven it shall come down on you until you are destroyed. All right? So these are all the bad things that's going to happen to the nation of Yasrael. Verse 25. Yahuwah will cause you to be defeated before your enemies. You shall go out one way against them and flee 7 ways before them. And you shall become troublesome to all the kingdoms of the earth. Okay? So it says we're going to go out 7 ways before our enemy. Or we're going to go out 1 way before our enemy and flee 7 ways before them. Does that sound familiar? Anybody from the hood can tell you that if you ever seen a whole bunch of black dudes on the block and they hanging out and they chilling, and then the police roll up, the laws roll up, what happened? What happened? We can have 100 black dudes on the block, not even really committing a crime, just kind of just hanging out and chilling, right? Have 100 of them out there, and 2 cops can roll up, just 2 of them. And what happened? All 100 black dudes flee in 7 different ways. They run 7 different ways trying to get away from them 2 cops, 100 dudes. So 2 of them make 100 of us run in 7 different ways. That's one of the curses, all right? It says, 26, your carcasses shall be food for all the birds of the air and the beasts of the earth. No one shall frighten them away. Yahuwah will strike you with the boils of Egypt, with tumors, with the scab, and with the itch from which you cannot be healed. Yahuwah will strike you with madness and blindness and confusion of heart. Who's more confused than black people right now in America? And you shall grope at noonday, as a blind man gropes in darkness. You shall not prosper in your ways. You shall be only oppressed and plundered continually, and no one shall save you. Who's saving black people right now? No one. 30. You shall betroth a wife, but another man shall lie with her. Okay, you're gonna take you a wife, and another man gonna lie with her. What happened to all of the black men during our slavery? Didn't the white man just come snatch her up when he wanted to? Master come snatch up your wife and have sex with her when he wants to? Or if he really wanted to, he'll come snatch you up and have sex with you in front of her. Okay, have sex with the man in front of the woman, all right? 30, you shall betroth the wife, but another man shall lie with her. You shall build a house, but you shall not dwell in it. You're going to build that house for master. Or massa, should I say. You shall plant a vineyard, but shall not gather its grapes, because you're going to plant that for massa. 31, your ox shall be slaughtered before your eyes, but you shall not eat of it. Your donkey shall be violently taken away from before you, and shall not be restored to you. Your sheep shall be given to your enemies. You shall have no one to rescue them. Your sons and your daughters shall be given to another people. Your eyes shall look and fail with longing for them all day long, and there shall be no strength in your hand. All right? Remember, they snatch up a whole family and split them apart, sell the mama over here, sell the daddy over there, brother over here, sister over there. Okay? They're going to be snatched up before your very eyes. All right? Now, if you don't recognize that your people, your nationality of people are fitting these prophecies, then you are not the chosen people. You don't fit this 400 years. But these prophecies so far man, black people in America, we fit these to a T, right? We know we got here in 1619, and ever since then, we've been fitting these prophecies to a T. Let's keep going and see what else is going to happen to us during this 400 years. 33. A nation, here we go, just like Jeremiah said earlier. A nation whom you have not known shall eat the fruit of your land and the produce of your labor, and you shall be only oppressed and crushed continually. So you shall be driven mad because of the sight which your eyes see. Feeding babies to alligators, right? That's what they did in Florida. They fed our babies to alligators. You don't think that'll drive somebody mad? They snatch a baby out of your newborn baby out your arm and go let it be alligator bait. That'll drive you mad as a father or a mother. Okay, what if that was your only child? What if you was having trouble having children and then they came and snatched your baby and did that? Okay? It says you will be driven mad because of the sight which your eyes see. You see a big 6'4", 270-pound man, swole, muscular black man, and get bent over on a tree stump and raped by a white man. That'll drive you mad, okay? And not only raped, but raped in front of the whole community of his peers, of black people. That'll drive you mad, okay? You see a baby being fed to an alligator, that'll drive you mad. You see your wife get snatched up in the middle of the night and raped, and sometimes maybe not brought back because maybe they raped her and killed her. That'll drive you mad. You see your daughter get snatched up or your son gets snatched up and raped. That will drive you mad. Okay? You fast forward and you see you marching for equal rights, for civil rights, and you see your wife get thrown to the ground by white police officers, and a police dog come and bites off one of her breasts. That'll drive you mad. You see your son playing in the park all by himself and, just being a child, and police roll up and shoot him to death within 10 seconds without asking any questions. That'll drive you mad. Okay? So, verse 34, Deuteronomy 28:34 says, you shall be driven mad because of the sight which your eyes see. You get, I just got to throw that last one in there. You get 100 years in prison for some weed. That'll drive you mad, all right? 35. Yahuwah will strike you in the knees and on the legs with severe boils, which cannot be healed, and from the sole of your foot to the top of your head. Okay? 36. Yahuwah will bring you and the king whom you set over you, get this, to a nation which neither you nor your fathers have known, and there you shall serve other gods, wood and stone. Okay? Is America a nation that neither us nor our fathers have known? Absolutely. We didn't know nothing about this place. Okay? We found out about it. Some of the most richest children of Yasrael found out about it later because, during the time of King Solomon, they was coming over here. But nobody stayed here. Not too many people stayed. Maybe a few stayed behind, but not too many people stayed and lived here. You see what I'm saying? So this is a nation that neither us nor our fathers knew about, and especially at the time of this writing in Deuteronomy. This is Moses speaking. And he said, neither you nor your fathers have known this place. We know Abraham knew about Egypt, so we know this ain't talking about the land of Egypt. This ain't talking about no captivity in Egypt. This is talking about the second part of that prophecy, the 400 years. Like Jeremiah said, this is a land that neither us nor our ancestors knew about, okay? They speak a strange language. He says in 36, he says, Yahuwah will bring you and the king whom you set over you to a nation which neither you nor your fathers have known. And there you shall serve other gods, wood and stone. Do we serve other gods of wood and stone here? We got white Jesus up in our church, big old statue. The Bible says clearly we shouldn't have any idols. or make any statues of the Most High, but here we got white Jesus posted up right in our church, right here in the black neighborhood. Huh? Right there where the children of Yasrael can worship. And what do we wear around our neck? A cross or some type of medallion that's supposed to bring us peace, or, some type of representation of a pharaoh from Egypt or something like that. That's what we wear. We serve gods of wood and stone and paper, because we serve the paper money god over here. See what I'm saying? So we serve other gods over here. That's what we do in this land of Babylon the Great. That's what we do over here. We serve other gods of wood and stone, and that's one of our curses. We wanted to serve them so bad. That's what a man, might tell his wife, or maybe even his kids. Your kids want something so bad. Your children want something so bad, and you tell them it's not good for you. It's not good for you. You ever heard the story of the child? I'm not advocating this as child abuse. I think it's child abuse, but, I heard the old people talk about back in the old days when, you smoke a cigarette. You get caught smoking a cigarette, and they catch you. They make you smoke the whole pack, maybe the whole carton of cigarettes, until you hated cigarettes. You see what I'm saying? And you didn't want to see. That's what the Most High has done to us. And it's not abuse, because we deserve it. We deserve it. Because we didn't get caught smoking the cigarette once. We got caught a bunch of times. And finally he made us smoke the whole pack. He said, you want to serve these false gods. You don't want to listen. You want to reject my son, the Messiah. You want to reject the creator of heaven and earth. You see what I'm saying? You want to do your own thing? Go ahead. I'm going to let you do it. And I'm going to let you see where it gets you. I'm not going to fight with you no more. I'm not going back and forth with you niggas. You see what I'm saying? I'm not. I'm going to let y'all do y'all thing. And in 400 years, y'all come back and tell me how it turned out for y'all. Okay? Tell me how it turned out for y'all. You don't have to serve my law. You go over here, and I'm going to put this nation, which neither you nor your fathers have known, over you. And you can serve their gods of wood and stone. And you tell me how that work out for you, since you don't want to listen to me. All right? 37. You shall become an astonishment. Meaning people they just looking at you. They don't even know. They just wondering about you. You're going to be a proverb, a byword among all nations where Yahuwah will drive you. You shall carry much seed out to the field, but gather little in, for the locust shall consume it. You shall plant vineyards and tend them, but you shall neither drink of the wine, nor gather the grapes, for the worms shall eat them. You shall have olive trees throughout all your territory, but you shall not anoint yourself with the oil, for your olives shall drop off. You shall beget sons and daughters, but they shall not be yours. They shall go into captivity. Locusts shall consume all your trees and the produce of your land. The alien who is among you, who is the alien? That's Esau, that's the white man. All right? The alien who is among you shall rise higher, that's the Amorites. All right? And the Perizzites and the Jebusites and the Ishmaelites. All right? The Arabs. The alien who is among you shall rise higher and higher above you, and you shall come down lower and lower. Verse 44 of 28 of Deuteronomy. He shall lend to you, but you shall not lend to him. He shall be the head, and you shall be the tail. Okay? Moreover, all these curses shall come upon you, and pursue and overtake you until you are destroyed, because you did not obey the voice of Yahuwah your Elohim, to keep his commandments and his statutes, which he commanded you. And they shall be upon you for a sign and a wonder, and on your descendants, your children, forever. Because you did not serve Yahuwah your Elohim with joy and gladness of heart for the abundance of everything. Therefore, you shall serve your enemies. What did he tell Abraham? Who was his descendants going to serve? Their enemies. Okay? They're going to serve their enemies. They're going to serve a nation that, a foreign nation, whom Yahuwah will send against you in hunger, in thirst, in nakedness, in need of everything, and he will put a yoke of iron on your neck until he has destroyed you. Okay? I'm going to read that again because y'all didn't hear that. Verse 48 of 28 of chapter 28 of Deuteronomy. You shall serve your enemies. Okay? These are people that don't like you. Who would do that? Who would serve somebody that don't even like them? That's what we're going to do. That's what we're going to be doing during this 400 years. You shall serve your enemies. Let's just replace that with, you shall serve people who don't even like you, whom Yahuwah will send against you. In hunger, we be hungry. In thirst, we was thirsty. In nakedness, we didn't have no clothes. In need of everything, we still need everything. He will put a yoke of iron on your neck until he has destroyed you. Okay? Who got the yoke of iron if it ain't black people? See, a yoke is what they used to put on an oxen's neck, on a cow, on a bull's neck. They put a yoke on his neck so that he can pull, so he can stay in one direction and pull this tractor behind him. Okay? Because he's a beast of burden. He's only there to do work, okay? And that's what they've used us as. They used us like that same bull, just like a stupid, dumb beast that they only use for work, okay? But the difference is that even the bull usually had a yoke made out of wood. Get what the Most High said we're gonna have. He said let's read it in verse 48 again. Therefore you shall serve your enemies, whom Yahuwah will send against you in hunger and thirst and nakedness, in need of everything. He will put a yoke of iron, not wood, iron on your neck. You ain't getting out of this. You ain't getting out of this yoke. You gonna do this work. You gonna be my slave. He will put a yoke of iron on your neck until he has destroyed you. Yahuwah will bring a nation against you from afar, from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle flies. See, that's prophecy. What's the national anthem in America? Or what's the national animal, should I say? Is it not an eagle? Where are we coming from? From afar. If you coming from America to Jerusalem, you coming from a far way away. From the end of the earth, this is the end of the earth, baby. That's where we at in America. We are afar and at the end of the earth. He said he will bring a nation against you from afar, from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle flies. A nation whose language you will not understand. When they came over there speaking English, so I said English. When they came over there speaking English to these West Africans, to our ancestors, you think they understood what they was talking about? No. All they knew, they probably had never seen white people, some of our people. Oh, they was afraid. They was terrified. These people must have looked at like ghosts or spirits to them or something. And evil spirits, coming to tie them up in chains and put them on a boat and carry them to this land way away from home. Just imagine that. And made to be a slave to this people that you couldn't even understand. And not just a slave, one of the most horrible types of slaves. Sexual, physical, mental, emotional, religious. You was a slave. You are a slave in this land of America, Babylon the Great. Okay? He says in 50, a nation of fierce countenance, which does not respect the elderly, nor show favor to the young. And they shall eat the increase of your livestock and the produce of your land, until you are destroyed. They shall not leave you grain or new wine or oil, or the increase of your cattle or the offspring of your flocks, until they have destroyed you. They shall besiege you at all your gates until your high and fortified walls, in which you trust, come down throughout all your land. And they shall besiege you at all your gates throughout all your land, which Yahuwah your Elohim has given you. Okay? Now that's talking about when they're in their own land, but it also applies to the 400 years. Anybody heard of Black Wall Street? A little town we want to build for ourselves and have a little something? Oh no, we're not going for that. Edom say he not going for that. Esau don't want to go for that. See? He says he's going to besiege you or come against you at all your gates, in all your cities. He going to fight against you. 53. You shall eat the fruit of your own body, the flesh of your sons and your daughters, whom Yahuwah your Elohim has given you, in the siege and desperate straits in which your enemy shall distress you. The sensitive and very refined man among you will be hostile toward his brother, toward the wife of his bosom, and toward the rest of his children whom he leaves behind, so that he will not give any of them the flesh of his children whom he will eat, because he has nothing left in the siege and desperate straits in which your enemy shall distress you at all your gates. The tender and delicate woman among you, who would not venture to set the sole of her foot on the ground because of her delicateness and sensitivity, will refuse to the husband of her bosom, and to her son and her daughter, her placenta, which comes out from between her feet, and her children whom she bears, for she will eat them secretly, for lack of everything in the siege and desperate straits in which your enemy shall distress you at all your gates. If you do not carefully observe all the words of this law that are written in this book, that you may fear this glorious and awesome name, Yahuwah your Elohim, then Yahuwah will bring upon you and your descendants extraordinary plagues, great and prolonged plagues, and serious and prolonged sicknesses. All right? Prolonged, as in 400 years of this sickness, this AIDS, this hepatitis, this, all of these mental diseases, and man, the list goes on and on. Deuteronomy 28, chapter 28, verse 60. Moreover, he will bring back on you all the diseases of Egypt, of which you were afraid, and they shall cling to you. Also, every sickness and every plague which is not written in this book of the law, AIDS, will Yahuwah bring upon you until you are destroyed. You shall be left few in number, black people, whereas you were as the stars of heaven in multitude, black people, because you would not obey the voice of Yahuwah your Elohim, black people. And it shall be that just as Yahuwah rejoiced over you to do you good and multiply you, black people, so Yahuwah will rejoice over you to destroy you and bring you to nothing, black people. You shall be plucked from off the land which you go to possess. Then Yahuwah will scatter you among all peoples, black people, from one end of the earth to the other, and there you shall serve other gods, which neither you nor your fathers have known, wood and stone. Now, anybody that know a little bit about history know that, the Gentiles, the Romans, the Greeks, the Egyptians, so on and so forth. These Gentile nations, even the English, and so on, the Ottomans, whoever you want to pick out, the Chinese, they all worship and have worshipped since pretty much the dawn or the beginning of time, gods of wood and stone. Okay? So this ain't nothing extraordinary for them. They've always worshipped gods of wood and stone. But for us, this is going to be a punishment. He say, these are going to be gods which neither you nor your fathers have known. So he's talking to somebody who can't be a white person or a Chinese person or an Egyptian person or, an Arab, because they always worship the gods of wood and stone. You can't be from a Hindu religion. He's talking to a specific people who did not traditionally worship gods of wood and stone, but now they would, because they kept trying to do it on the slick slide. And since y'all want to keep trying to do it on the slick slide, then here, go ahead and do it. That's all you're gonna do, actually, because I'm not talking to y'all no more. That's what the Most High said. I'm the living Elohim. I'm the living God. Y'all don't want to deal with me, fine. I don't want to deal with y'all. You don't love me, I don't love you. Cool. I won't talk to you no more. You go talk to those gods of wood and stone. Okay? So we know this is talking about black people, because the Yasraelites were the only people traditionally known to only want to worship one Elohim, or one God. Okay? They only recognized one Elohim. They weren't like these other nations that had multiple gods, multiple Elohim. They didn't have multiple gods of wood and stone, but now they would, since they wanted to keep trying to do it on the slick slide. So just further clarification as to who we talking about. Okay? Verse 65. Among those nations you shall find no rest, nor shall the sole of your foot have a resting place. But there Yahuwah will give you a trembling heart, failing eyes, and anguish of soul. Your life shall hang in doubt before you. You shall fear day and night, and have no assurance of life. In the morning you shall say, oh, that it were evening. And at evening you shall say, oh, that it were morning, because of the fear which terrifies your heart, and because of the sight which your eyes see. And Yahuwah will take you back to Egypt in ships, by the way of which I said to you, you shall never see it again. And there you shall be offered for sale to your enemies as male and female slaves, but no one will buy you. All right? So 68 sums it up. You say you're going to bring you back into Egypt. That's what they call America, Babylon the Great. They call this modern day Egypt. See, they got a obelisk. They got obelisks in Washington D.C. shaped like male penises. See what I'm saying? They got phallic symbols all over this place, just like the Egyptians. They got pyramids and all of this stuff, and the so-called founding fathers, George Washington. They wanted to worship the same gods as the Egyptians. You just got to do your research on these people. You just got to look it up. I can't put it all in one video, but definitely do your research on these founding fathers of America. See who they wanted to be like. Why do you think they so obsessed with Egypt? Why do you think they can't stay from over there? They stay in the tombs. See, they call this modern day Egypt because just like Egypt in Moses' day, this place is fixing to be judged for what they've done to the Most High's people. Why have they done what they've done? Because they worship false gods, just like the Egyptians. So they've been misled by these false gods into thinking that they are greater than what they are, and they can put themselves above the Most High and above His people, and they're finna be judged for it. They've been doing it for the past 400 years, and they're fixing to be judged severely for it, actually. Okay? So this is what's about to happen to these people. All right? And he says, when we get to this land, he says he's going to take us by means of ship. Now, it didn't take a ship to get from Yasrael to Egypt. So we're not talking about actual Egypt here. We're talking about America with the spirit of Egypt. Okay? And he said, I said you'll never go that way again. Which way? West. I said you'll never have to return back west again. All right? But you're going to conquer all of this over here in the east. But no, we have to keep going back. So he said, I said you'll never go back that way again. And here it is. You fitting to go back that way again. And when you get there, you're going to be offered for sale to your enemies as male and female slaves, and no one will buy you. Now that's cold, because that's pretty much what it is in America. That's what it was. Initially, yeah, they was buying us, right? they was buying slaves over here, right? But eventually, no one was gonna buy us because everybody started breeding their own slaves. You see what I'm saying? They actually had slave breeding compounds, so I could imagine that just like any commodity, once you had so many slaves, so many black people that were bred to be slaves in America, eventually, the price just went down to, hey, it ain't even worth paying for no more. No one will buy you, is what the Bible says in Deuteronomy 28. So you're going to be sold as female slaves and male slaves. So we were sold. And then he said, no one going to buy you. And that rings true. That rings true. And even to this day, we can't get a job. A lot of us, especially those of us with lower education or from the so-called hood or ghetto, we can't even get a job. And we know that modern day jobs are just slavery. So we can't even go sell ourselves now. You see what I'm saying? What they tell you when you go to a job interview? Sell yourself, right? That's what they tell you. Make sure you sell yourself. You're a slave. And we can't even get a job. You see what I'm saying? So no one will buy us. So, all of these prophecies, they fit black people. They fit the black people in North America, in the United States of America. They don't fit any other group of people. No other group of people has had all of these prophecies fulfilled in them and been sold as male and female slaves and taken out of their homeland and brought to a whole nother land and made to, be servants there and sexually abused and, like the Bible says, your wife another man gonna sleep with your wife and your children gonna be snatched up, from your hands and you'll never see them again. You see what I'm saying? Your baby's gonna be fed to alligators. Nobody else fits these prophecies except for black Americans. Okay? Nobody else fits these prophecies except for a lot of the African tribes who came from the nation of Yasrael. You see what I'm saying? But nobody fits these prophecies for 400 years except for black Americans. So-called black Americans, the children of Yahudah and Benjamin and the Levites who were among us, you see, among our ancestors, okay? So now all Yasrael is getting ready to be saved. But we just want to make it very clear that this 400-year prophecy is strictly referring to the descendants of Abraham, the Yahudites, the tribe of Yahudah, and the tribe of Benjamin, okay? And the Levites who were among them. That's who this is referring to, okay? And all of the other tribes would undergo their atrocities and undergo a lot of these curses as well, okay? They would undergo them as well, but not for 400 years continuously, all right? That only fits black Americans, okay? But it's not all doom and gloom, okay? It's not all doom and gloom, because even though the Most High said all of these bad things was going to happen to us, let's go back to Genesis again and read it again. What's going to happen after that? What's going to happen after that? Turn your Bible back to 15 if you didn't have it marked already, of Genesis, chapter 15 of Genesis, and we're going to read verse 13 and 14. It says, Then he said to Abram, Know certainly that your descendants will be strangers in a land that is not theirs. We know that was Egypt, right? And they will serve them, for 4 generations, right? Okay. And then it says they will afflict them for 100 years. We know that's talking about America. The nation whom they serve, America, I will judge. Afterward, they shall come out with great possessions. Okay? So it's not all doom and gloom. All right? 14 says, the nation whom they serve, I will judge. So they're going to get theirs. They're going to get their judgment. They don't get their repayment for what they did to the Most High's chosen people, to the Yasraelites, to the Yehudites, to the Benjamites, okay? To the Levites. They're going to get what's coming to them, all right? He said, I'm going to judge that nation. And it's not going to be a good judgment Look what they did. You think the Most High going to judge them good for feeding babies to alligators? They're going to pay for that, okay? And what else does it say? It says, afterward, they shall come out with great possessions. We not leaving empty-handed. No, sir. We not leaving here empty-handed. See, what happened when the Yasraelites left Egypt, okay? Because we prophesying about two places right now. This is a dual prophecy once again. He's talking about the land of Egypt and America. This is how the Most High works. He's all-knowing and all-powerful. He can give a prophecy about one of the first greatest nations ever and one of the last ones, all at the same time. He said, I'm the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. I can tell you the beginning and the end, okay? Egypt was the beginning of the world powers. America going to be the end of them. Point blank, period. And all in one prophecy, in one dream, in one vision, he gave it all to Abraham right there. What was going to happen with this first world empire, how was they going to get famous and powerful, and how they was going to fall, and then on to the next one. How was they going to get famous and powerful, and how was they going to fall? Both of them was going to get famous and powerful by enslaving his chosen people, making them do forced labor. They was going to get very rich from it, and they was both going to be judged by the Most High because of it. Okay? So let's see what happened when the children of Yasrael left Egypt. Okay? Because it says we're going to leave this place with great possessions. Let's see what happened when they left Egypt. Did they leave with great possessions? Okay, so we're going to read Exodus chapter 12 right now. All right, and we're going to read 33 through 36. Why not? All right, it says the Egyptians, 33. It says the Egyptians urged the people to hurry and leave the country. This is after they had been judged. They didn't want to let them go. The Most High kept sending these plagues on them, the frogs and the locusts and the gnats and the blood and, turning the water into blood, killing their firstborn. Eventually, they was kicking them out. Okay, they didn't want to let them go at first. Now they're kicking them out. Exodus chapter 12, verse 33, the Egyptians urged the people to hurry and leave the country. For otherwise, they said, we will all die. So the people took their dough before the yeast was added and carried it on their shoulders in kneading troughs wrapped in clothing. The Israelites, the Yasraelites, did as Moses instructed and asked the Egyptians for articles of silver and gold and for clothing. So here it is, they asking the Egyptians for silver, gold, and clothing. We just killed your firstborn. The Most High just killed your firstborn. But you know what? Let me get that gold ring. Let me get that Versace shirt right there. I like that. That's nice. I'm leaving. I'm gonna need that. All right? That's what they did to the Egyptians. It says they asked them for right when they suffering and crying over losing all their animals and losing their firstborn and family members dead and the whole land destroyed. Here go the Yasraelites. Hey, let me get them clothes right there. Let me get that gold ring. Let me get that gold bracelet. See? Because that's what the Most High told Moses to tell them to do. All right? It says they did as Moses instructed and asked the Egyptians for articles of silver and gold and for clothing. Yahuwah had made the Egyptians favorably disposed toward the people, and they gave them what they asked for. So they plundered the Egyptians. They didn't even have to fight for it, y'all. It says the Egyptians gave it to them. They wanted them out of that land so bad. They were so tired of being judged by the Most High for how they had treated his people that they was kicking them out. And here, you can take whatever you want. Just go. Just go. It's almost like when you're being robbed. Okay? They got you and your family at gunpoint. They want your money and your watch. Just take it, man. Just go. You just ready for them to get that gun out of your face or out of the face of your child or your wife. Or just go. Just take it. I don't even want this material stuff right now. I just want to stop having my life threatened. Okay? That's what the Egyptians was doing. They was having their life threatened just by the children of Yasrael even continuing to be there in their land. because they know that the Most High said, let them go. And as long as these people are not let go and they stay in this land, we're going to get more and more curses. Not only are we going to let them go, we're going to kick them out. We done with these people. Give them what they want so they can go. I don't want nothing holding them up. See? So that's what's going to happen in our day and time. That's what's going to happen at the end of this 400-year prophecy. So when does it end? Let's do the simple math. You count 1619 to 2019, and you get 400 years. 400 years of this treatment that these black Americans, these so-called black Americans have gone through, these children of Yasrael, of Yahudah, these Levites, these Benjamites. See? 400 years that we've endured this treatment under the hand of our cruel slave master. And what's about to happen? Same thing. The Most High don't change, and he don't play with timelines. See, people can try to guess, and they can try to play. And I know no man, some people, oh, no man knows the hour and the time of day. True. Nobody said this was the end of the world. Nobody said that this was Armageddon as we know it. Nobody said that. The Most High said that he's about to judge this nation, okay? And we're going to leave here with great possessions, all right? That's what he did say. Now, that's what I do believe. Nobody said it's the end of the world. In fact, there is no end of the world. You see what I'm saying? The Most High said, I established this place even to be inhabited, okay? So that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the freedom of his people and the judgment of the people who made them slaves in the first place. And that's what these people are scared of. You can see them everywhere right now. They're totally afraid. You know, you got Donald Trump with the HR 122. You know, I done heard some Israelite brothers or Yasraelite brothers and sisters, oh, y'all only believe in that because the white man gave y'all, you know, permission to believe. No, it's got nothing to do with HR 122. It's the other way around. The HR 122, acknowledging that we've been here 400 years, signed by Donald Trump, that was only put into play because they realized that our time is up, okay? It's not them, you know, making this up. It's the Most High who made this up. It's them playing into the hands of the Most High and not the other way around, okay? They didn't make up this 400-year prophecy. That's in the Bible. They didn't you know, have no extreme foresight to say that, hey, we're just going to keep these people for 400 years, and in 400 years we're going to let them go. Nobody from 400 years ago is even alive anymore. How could they make a plan like that? You see what I'm saying? So that's the Most High. The Most High gave Abraham this dream thousands of years ago, maybe over 4,000 years ago. Abraham received this dream, okay? Over 4,000 years ago, he received this dream. So this got nothing to do with Donald Trump saying HR 122, you know, oh, y'all been here 400. No, this has got everything to do with, he's only saying that because he realized it. They did the research, or somebody did it for him. And they in their ear saying, hey, these people's time is up. Our time is up to be ruling. Their time for rulership is over. It's our turn now. You see what I'm saying? So that's all we're saying. That's what the 400-year prophecy is all about. August of 2019 is when the 400 years is up. Now, we might have to give or take a few days, weeks, or even months just because they've played with our calendar so much and played with our history so much. But I can guarantee you, we've been here 400 years, and we've endured every single prophecy that has been prophesied about us, and we've endured every curse that we've been cursed with. So if you're a Yasraelite brother or sister, you know, that does not believe 2019 is the day, then maybe you need to check your faith card. You know, maybe you need to check your faith card because the scriptures line completely up with that date. This is not something that Donald Trump said. This is not because Ghana wants to start letting people come back. All of these people are just lining up with Bible prophecy. Bible prophecy is not lining up with them. You see what I'm saying? Or it does line up with them, but not for their sake. You see what I'm saying? They're lining up with what the Bible says. The Bible doesn't have to follow. The Most High doesn't follow behind man. Okay? He's the one that said this was going to be over in 400 years. He the one that decided when the time started and when it's up. He's the one who said 4 generations is how long they was going to be in Egypt as slaves, and exactly at the end of 4 generations they was let go. Okay? He didn't, not 4.5, not 4.25, not 5, not 6 generations, but 4, just like he told Abraham. So what makes us think that, you know, Egypt being the beginning, him being Alpha and Omega, and us being the ending, what makes you think he's going to play with our timeline and go 10 years over, 5 years over, 20 years over, or underestimate it by 5 years? You see what I'm saying? He don't, that's one thing. He don't give timelines a lot. The Most High does not give a timeline a lot on when he's going to do things. But when he does, you better believe it, and you better not play with it. You better not play with it at all. And that's exactly what he's done with this 400-year prophecy. Okay, so 2019 in August is the date that we are to be set free from this captivity according to the Bible. Now, anybody want to argue with me about that? Hey, I suggest you go get on your knees, face your little body towards the east, towards Jerusalem, and you pray to the Most High. And you talk to him about how upset you are that he's letting his people go. You don't talk to me or anybody else about it because, hey, I'm just the messenger. You know, like they said, don't shoot the messenger, okay? So that's your 400-year prophecy in a nutshell. You know, like I said, I hear a lot of people talking about it. I have not heard it thoroughly explained, and so I felt the need, you know, nothing bad about none of my brothers who do these videos. I just have not heard it thoroughly explained. So, you know, I want to do my own video and definitely explain it in detail as to why I believe that the 400-year prophecy is up in 2019. And if you got any comments, you can leave them below. If you got anything to add to this, please add it for edification of your brothers and sisters. You got any scriptures you want to share that can help clarify what we're talking about here, then please add them, you know, in the comments. I appreciate your time, brothers and sisters. You know, I wish peace and prosperity to all the brothers and sisters around the globe. I pray that we all are gifted with our daily bread. I pray that we all are gifted with our daily bread of not only physical, but spiritual, emotional, and mental nature as well. Okay, so with that being said, it's your boy Yasrael, Jaded, and I'm out. Peace, love, and prosperity. All praises to the Most High Yahuwah forever and ever.